Chapter 1165. Higashio Motetsu had been hiding in a corner by himself, waiting for the show to begin. He never expected to see Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan together. He felt uncomfortable and wanted to look away, but he couldn't control his body. He could only watch as the two intimately snuggled up to each other. Perhaps it was because he was hiding in the shadows and surrounded by a boiling cauldron of voices that he was able to act without the slightest scruple. He didn't have to worry about Xiao Su's vigilance as he watched them the entire time. A blurry light fell on her body, obscuring her expression. However, from her completely dependent appearance, Higashio Motetsu felt like this was the first time he had seen her like this. She was as obedient as a small animal. She had retracted her claws and was in her most relaxed state. It was as if something that belonged to him had only been discovered today. It turned out that she had never been completely open to him. Higashio Motetsu felt a bitter taste in the corner of his mouth. What should he do? He felt a little jealous of Xiao Su. At this time, the crowd was constantly blocking his line of sight. He withdrew his gaze and turned to the other side, where he saw Xuanqi Zimo gesturing to him. Thinking that it was about time, he decided to temporarily push the chaotic emotions that had welled up in his heart to the back of his mind. At the same time, Pang Zhijing, who had been wandering around, came to the back of a rockery to rest. She had been squeezed all the way here until her legs were sore, and she was leaning against a tree trunk without a care for her image. The maids accompanying her were already used to her behavior. After trying to persuade her a few times to no avail, they didn't waste any more time. Now that her true nature had been exposed, she no longer hid it and went her own way. In any case, she was far away from Southern Blue, so on the surface, she was the most powerful. While she was resting, there seemed to be a group of people on the other side of the rockery. However, unlike her rest, they seemed to be waiting for someone. They were chattering very noisily. Because she was in the shadows, no one noticed her. However, she was able to see them in the shadows. She was about to sigh. The place she had found with great difficulty was about to be ruined again. However, at this time, she heard Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su's names. Did you see that just now? The King of England was actually accompanying Chu Qingyan to admire flowers. Didn't they say that the King of England was a martial artist who wielded swords all day and didn't understand these things? One of the girls in pink spoke with a strange tone. That's nothing. However, I find it strange that the King of England has such a gentle side. The woman in blue interrupted. When I passed him just now, he didn't care for anyone else. He only had his eyes on Chu Qingyan. He was so affectionate. The yellow-clothed woman couldn't help but sigh. I thought that a great figure like King Ing would be cold and taciturn, disdaining to come down to the mortal world. Who would have thought that after meeting you today, you would be so unexpected? Shook shaking her head. Really for making a fuss over nothing. You think that he's a cold man who doesn't know how to be romantic, but that's because he's warm, not you. She remembered the way Xiao Su looked at Chu Qingyan and the way he looked at others. She couldn't help but shiver. Xiao Su was as cold as he could be to others, but to Chu Qingyan, it was as if he was immersed in a honeypot. His heart emitted warmth. Pang Zhijing sighed. It seemed that those people weren't ready to leave yet. She would go find a quiet place by herself. However, just as she was about to leave, the center of the conversation fell on her. To be exact, there was also Xiao Ho. She couldn't help but stop. You guys say that the Southern Song Princess is quite beautiful, but is there a problem with her brain? There's so many good men out there, but she chose a sickly person. I heard that a few years ago, the imperial physician said that the third prince wouldn't live past 20. Now, he's relying on those medicinal herbs to keep him alive. Otherwise, he would have already. The last few words weren't said, but everyone had a tacit understanding. The woman in yellow continued the conversation. Her tone was also filled with doubt and undisguised ridicule. That's right. You didn't see everyone's reaction in the hall. They were all shocked. However, this barbaric princess knows her place and doesn't dare to harm others. Now, the position of the other prince's concubines has become a hot commodity in the capital. That's right. The Southern Song people are rude and unreasonable. I saw her performance in the hall. She was simply shameless. If it was someone else choosing a son-in-law, they wouldn't be so boastful. She showed her face in public without any etiquette. You guys are the ones with holes in your brains. Xiao Ho isn't a sickly person. Pang Zhijing's heart was burning with anger. She simply couldn't listen anymore. She turned around and left. After that, she couldn't hear anything else. Even if she was open-minded, she would still feel stifled after hearing such unpleasant words. She then walked away on her own. By the time she had calmed down, the maids by her side had already been pushed away by Brave Surge's men. Since she did not know the way back, she had no choice but to find a place to rest and wait for them to come looking for her. Only after the bustling noise had left did she have the mood to think about the conversation of those gossipy girls. Why was she so angry? Was it purely because she was being criticized? No, she could still laugh it off at the beginning. It was when they started talking behind Xiao Ho's back that her anger rose. She was momentarily stunned. Since when did she care so much about what others thought of him? Could it be that the scope of justice had broadened? Since when was she so kind? Just when she was shocked by her own thoughts, she heard a few footsteps coming in her direction. However, they didn't get any closer and were only a few steps away. There was a huge potted plant in the middle, completely concealing her. Where is she? The person with his back facing Pang Zhijing asked. Chu Qingyan has already arrived at the flowing water pavilion. The fourth prince's men are now at the crabapple flower bank. A sharp voice sounded. It sounded like the voice of a eunuch. Very good. Now, one of you will go and lure Chu Qingyan to the crabapple flower bank. After that, act according to the plan. Young palace master said that you only have one chance. Think about it carefully. The person with his back facing them spoke again with a hint of warning. The few of them hurriedly responded and then dispersed. After the person who gave the instructions looked around and saw that there was no one around, he quickly left. Pang Zhijing, who was standing in the shadows, seemed to have stumbled upon a huge conspiracy. While the other party was talking, she covered her mouth tightly with one hand, afraid that she would make any noise and be silenced. After the person left, she held onto a tree branch and thought in a daze. Could it be that someone wanted to frame Qingyan? No, she had to warn her, even if she was overthinking it. Pang Zhijing made up her mind and immediately turned around. However, she was frightened by the person standing silently behind her. She stumbled back and fell to the ground. She didn't care about the pain. Her heart was in her throat. She raised her head and looked at the pair of dormant, shining eyes in the darkness. She heard that person laugh and say, "Seems like we've been discovered." The voice that sounded like a laugh, yet not a laugh, made her feel as if she had been doused with cold water. Her whole body trembled. Chapter 1166. Hearing his voice, Pang Zhijing felt a chill rise from the bottom of her feet. Although she couldn't see his face hidden in the darkness, just by looking at his pair of beautiful and evil eyes, she knew that he didn't come with good intentions. She struggled to stand up, but found that she couldn't exert any strength on her ankle. She cursed inwardly. She must have sprained her old injury, but it wasn't to the extent that she didn't have any strength. She must have been frightened. What should she do? "You, who are you? What are you doing here? What does it have to do with you that I'm here?" At this time, the most important thing was to take the initiative and not be controlled by others. No matter if he was from the group, just now, or someone else, she wanted to let him know that she wasn't someone to be trifled with. Thus, she raised her voice and bluffed. Higashio Motetsu glanced at Pang Zhijing, who had fallen to the ground, and snorted in his heart. She was still too inexperienced to play games with him. If he hadn't come to find Zimo out of boredom, he wouldn't have known that their plan had been seen through. In order to proceed smoothly, he had the intention to kill. No matter how loud you are, you won't attract the guards. This is the palace's blind spot, and my men are all around. There was the sound of someone walking by. He estimated the distance between them. He had to get rid of her quietly. He couldn't make a move now to prevent her from exposing their tracks. After coming to this strange world for so long, she had been wandering between life and death. Being influenced by what she saw and heard, she could more or less understand the hidden meaning in his words. Pang Huang was cold and heartless to her. As long as she had any value, he would desperately squeeze it out. He didn't care if she was dead or alive. After all, she was just a royal brother and sister. He could have as many as he wanted. As for Xiao Ho, although his words were threatening her, she could tell that he did not place her little life in his eyes. It was just that they needed each other, and he would occasionally tease her so that she could stay by his side with a clear conscience. She could act like a tyrant without crossing his bottom line. However, the person in front of her, although his words and actions were slow and relaxed, he really wanted to kill her. She suddenly realized that Xiao Ho might be the only person who could use her and protect her at the same time since she came to this strange world. What do you want to do? Pang Zhijing looked at the person who was slowly approaching. Her heart turned cold, but she didn't dare to make a sound to annoy him. She could only drag her body back. You know something you shouldn't know? There's no use keeping your life. Why don't you report to the King of Hell in advance and learn what you should and shouldn't hear? Princess, so you were hiding here. Father is looking for you. As for Higashio Motetsu, when the other party spoke, he weighed the possibility of exposing himself if he made a move now. In the end, he stopped, and his gaze landed precisely on the other side of the wall, on the person who had pointed out the identity of the woman in front of him and himself. He was very smart. Because of that sentence, he had subconsciously weighed the consequences of going up against two people with extremely high statuses. Therefore, in that moment of hesitation, he had given the other party time to approach, and he would not be able to make a move. It turned out that there was such a smart person in the imperial family of the capital. He thought of Xiao Su, Xiao Ran, Consort Yu, and the others. He couldn't help but chuckle. The capital was too lively. Higashio Motetsu didn't stay any longer and left in a flash. By the time Xiao Ho reached where he had been standing, he had already disappeared. Xiao Ho did not expect this person's martial arts to be so high that he could actually escape when he was just a few steps away from him. Frowning, he instructed in a low voice, "Send someone to investigate this person's background." "Yes." In the darkness, someone replied and then retreated. "How long do you plan on sitting on the ground?" Xiao Ho looked down at her from above. Pang Zhijing was completely unaware of what had just happened. She still hadn't recovered from what had just happened. Only when the voice above her crashed down did she raise her head in a daze. He lowered his brows and asked impatiently. However, the moonlight poured down and poured down on his body. He came against the light like a god of salvation. The light softened the sharpness in his eyes. Reflected in her eyes was only a kind and benevolent face. She seemed to have found a ray of hope that she could rely on in the boundless sea. Her eyes were sore. She had forgotten about the matter of scheming against him in the palace. She felt wronged and helpless. "I can't stand up." While waiting for her to speak, he had already noticed that something was wrong with her. Hearing her dependent tone, he was slightly stunned. He could have just left her alone, but seeing her red nose and how frightened she was, even if it was out of good etiquette, he couldn't just sit there and watch. So he went forward and reached out, one hand holding her arm and the other holding her waist. With a bit of strength, he helped her up. After she stood up, he retreated to a suitable distance. His expression was still unhappy as he looked at her. The imperial palace is not like the outside. Don't run around. This time this king was able to save you, but next time you might not be so lucky. She didn't have time to enjoy his gentleness before she was ruthlessly splashed with cold water. She pouted and then lowered her head to tidy up her clothes. Her skirt had been torn by a stone, but the mark wasn't very obvious, so she could make do with it. Xiao Ho saw that she was fine. She still had the courage to be angry after doing something wrong. His head hurt a bit. "Speak. Why did that person attack you?" Although they were far apart, he could clearly feel the strong, killing intent coming from that person. These words inadvertently reminded Pang Zhijing. She finally remembered that she still needed to find Qing Yin. She quickly asked, "Do you know where that flowing water pavilion is?" Xiao Ho saw that she was recklessly looking left and right and did not listen to what he said just now. He was originally angry, but at this time he did not hide it. He reached out and grabbed her wrist, his anger uncontrollable. "Pang Zhijing, you have guts." Even Xiao Ho, who was usually calm and collected, found it hard to calm down after being plotted against in front of his imperial father and the officials of the imperial court. Being able to wait for her calmly tonight was already suppressing the anger in his chest. Seeing that she wasn't cooperating, he even had the heart to strangle her to death. The sharp pain from her wrist made her soul return to her body. The matter of how his plan to choose a son-in-law in front of everyone instantly rushed into her mind. Her face turned white. Damn it, he wouldn't want to settle the score now, right? Chapter 1167. Xiao, you have to calm down. Pang Zhijing twisted her wrist and struggled. Although the person in front of her looked as weak as a little white flower, once he used his strength, she couldn't move at all. She could only try to persuade him. Xiao raised his eyebrows and smiled, but his voice was a little cold. Do you think that this prince is too lenient with you? So you dare to play tricks in front of this prince? No, I didn't mean that. She immediately denied it. What a joke. If she admitted it, her good days would come to an end. However, she didn't seem to have any good days left. Seeing her innocent and obedient appearance, he remembered that she had caught him off guard in the palace today. He couldn't help but use more strength in his hand. Then tell me, why did you go against our plan? After going around in circles, it still came back to this question. She thought that if she didn't face it today, she would be torn to pieces by him sooner or later. I think that this plan is very unreasonable. Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan are very loving. If I were to interfere, think about the Southern Song Army's ending. I'm afraid that I would die very miserably. She quickly explained, you are a princess of a country. Even if your request is unreasonable, no one will find trouble with you. Moreover, do you think that this prince is just a decoration? After Xiao finished speaking, he realized that she was just quibbling. His gaze turned cold. This prince wants to hear the truth. As expected of an old fox, she secretly complained in her heart, but she didn't dare to play tricks. I think that I'm living very well and don't like to be a third party. Moreover, I don't want to cooperate with your plan at all. It feels like I'm helping the evildoer. Have a good heart. I'm just an insignificant outsider, so let me go. I promise that I won't cause any trouble for you. These words made Xiao's lungs explode. He never thought that the carefully arranged chess piece would give him such a big blow at this time. Now that the situation has been set, and our marriage has been set, do you still think that you're an insignificant person? Once you're involved, unless you die, you won't be able to escape even if you have wings. These words were so severe that she ignored the pain in her wrist. But for some reason, the words marriage made her heart tremble slightly. There was an indescribable feeling of joy in her heart, which made her feel at a loss. After all that had happened, Xiao didn't dare to be careless around her. His eyes were glued to her face, and when he saw that her expression was flickering, he couldn't help but narrow his eyes and move closer to her. Pang Zhijing, your goal is to marry this prince? There was no path behind her to begin with, and as she was pulled backwards by him, her entire body collided with the potted plant. The dense branches pierced through her thin summer shirt, and it hurt a little, but she did not dare to move. His words were like Xiao's, exploding in her ears, her mind, and her heart. Aye. She opened her mouth, but didn't know what to say. She had always been conflicted about which prince to choose. Although the choice was not in her hands, she had placed her last bet on the palace banquet. Xiao Su was the first to be excluded. She had heard that Xiao Yao was too lecherous and was always obsessed with women. Xiao Ran was also the center of the power vortex. She couldn't afford to offend him. She could only choose someone she was familiar with and had confidence in, and that could only be Xiao. However, she had forgotten that this person was actually a wolf in sheep's clothing. For example, right now his slightly red eyes were filled with anger. Xiao did not give her a chance to continue. He seemed to have suddenly put away his sharpness and transformed into a gentle lover. He held her wrist with one hand and her chin with the other. He leaned closer, and his eyes turned affectionate. Do you like this prince? Huh. Her eyes widened in an instant. She didn't know if it was because she couldn't believe his question or because she found it hard to believe the answer in her heart. She froze there like a stone. Let go, I'm in pain. Xiao's fingers used a bit of force, causing her chin to hurt. She couldn't say a single word she wanted to say. He was like a rose, mysterious and charming, but also coquettish and thorny. This king was still thinking about why you appeared in the king's palace last night. The knockout drug was just an excuse. Your true goal should be this king. Her face turned red. How could this person be so shameless? Was it fun to ridicule her? No, he was taking revenge on her. But his aura surrounded her body, making her unable to move forward or retreat. She just stood there like a block of wood. Seeing her awkward appearance, Xiao did not stop there. It was like he was certain that she was thinking like this. The charm on his body faded and his gentleness returned. He let go of her chin, but his grip on her wrist was still there. Princess, although this king was careless this time, don't think that this king will spend any effort on you. In this king's eyes, you are no different from a wildflower on the side of the road. He was like an aloof god-emperor. His eyes were filled with pity, but he disdained to show any kindness. Pang Zhijing looked at him in a daze. She forgot about the pain in her wrist because these words seemed to make her heart hurt even more. Xiao flung her hand away. She couldn't control her body and fell backwards, just in time to be caught by the right maid. Xiao ordered, "Keep an eye on the princess. Until the banquet ends, don't let her leave the main hall." Those maids did not know how this great aunt had offended this master, so they immediately lowered their heads in response. Pang Zhijing had her head down as she watched his clothes drift away from her line of sight. Her eyes numbly fell onto the bruises on her wrist, and her lips suddenly curled as a self-deprecating smile appeared. Just now, when he asked her if she liked him, her heart actually did not deny it. It turned out that during these days, she had developed different feelings for him. Only she felt that she was very pitiful. As soon as she confirmed that she liked someone, she was judged to have fallen out of love. Was there anyone in this world who was more pitiful than her? "Princess, we should return to the palace." The maid did not know what she was thinking as she carried out Xiao's instructions. Pang Zhijing raised her head with a somewhat desolate expression. She was already too busy to take care of herself and could not report to Qingyan. However, with Xiao Su by her side, even if there was danger, she should be able to resolve it. She wanted to raise her hand, but found that her wrist could not exert any strength. She grumbled in her heart, so heavy-handed. After Pang Zhijing's group walked away, there was a small commotion on Chu Qingyan's side. After Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su finished strolling around the lanterns, they prepared to return home. At this time, a palace maid appeared in front of them. "Young Miss Chu, young Miss Tang, and young Miss Jean are waiting for you in front. They said that they saw several beautiful lanterns and wanted you to go take a look." The other party pointed out the names of the people and even explained the reason. Chu Qingyan did not think much of it and said to the person beside her, "Wait for me here. I'll be back soon." Xiao Su saw that there were only women there, and it was not convenient for him to appear. He nodded and told her to be careful before retreating to the side to wait for her. She smiled at him and brought Ning with her to follow the little palace maid. Chapter 1168. Following the palace maid for a while, she entered the crowd and then slowly left the lively riverside. Chu Qingyan felt that something was wrong. She turned around to call out Ning, but found that she had been pushed to an unknown place by the crowd. "Where's Miss Tang and Miss Jean?" Chu Qingyan's heart was filled with suspicion. She turned around to ask that palace maid, but in the blink of an eye, she had disappeared. This made her heart feel even more apprehensive. Could it be that someone was playing a prank on her? She stood there for a while and did not see anyone familiar. She made a prompt decision and wanted to go back the way she came. But at this time, a small sound came from behind her. She stopped in her tracks and exerted strength in her wrist. She turned around to attack the person, but she hit empty air and her arm was caught by the person. Her brows knit together and she wanted to turn around to attack again, but a familiar laughter sounded in her ears. "Although we haven't seen each other in a long time, isn't this greeting gift a bit too big?" The lazy and evil voice made her stop her movements. She turned around to face him with a surprised expression. "Why are you here?" If it wasn't for him speaking, she wouldn't have been able to recognize him in such a dark place with his unique appearance. "I came to see a good show for free." He let go of her hand and continued to smile in an annoying manner. She did not believe his words at all. Using all sorts of methods to enter the palace to dress up like this, she would believe that the sun would rise from the west if there was no motive. Then you wouldn't have led me here, right? She narrowed her eyes as she looked at him. Higashio Motetsu shrugged his shoulders. He was about to say something when his ears moved. He raised his index finger to his lips and then pulled her hand to jump onto the roof beside them. Chu Qingyin did not have time to react and could only be led by him. When the two of them squatted down on the roof tiles, she finally said in a low and angry voice, "What do you want to do? Be careful of being mistaken as an assassin." Higashio Motetsu looked around. When he heard her words, he couldn't help laughing. Being mistaken as an assassin is also good. I'll drag you down with me. I'm being serious with you. Don't be so out of tune all the time. Chu Qingyin pushed him angrily. He looked back at her, the devilish charm in his almond-shaped eyes suddenly dissipating. He looked at her with a chuckle and then motioned for her not to make a sound. Just watch first. I guarantee that it will exceed your expectations. Knowing that it was pointless to continue asking, Chu Qingyin tactfully shut her mouth. However, when the two of them were so close to each other, she suddenly felt a little awkward. This was because she remembered how the two of them had parted on bad terms in the Hugwa Temple. Now that they met again, they could be so calm as if nothing had happened. She could not help but feel surprised. Perhaps this is what friends are like. There was no overnight enmity between husband and wife, and there was no overnight enmity between friends. However, what happened next left her with no time to consider their situation. A figure stealthily appeared where she had been standing. Chu Qingyin could not help turning her head to look at the person beside her. Higashio Motetsu saw her gaze and raised an eyebrow, indicating for her to look below. Chu Qingyin frowned. She could only carefully observe the person below. Looking at the figure, it was a woman, and the clothes she was wearing were exquisite. It was not something a normal person could afford, so she concluded that it was a harem girl or a young miss from a government official's family. However, at this time, the lights flashed and she saw the person's face. She leaned forward in surprise. It was actually Jing Mingzhu. What was she doing here? Strange. Didn't they say that the fourth prince was here? Why did he disappear the moment I came? Jing Mingzhu looked left and right, feeling a little anxious. Previously, she had followed Xiao, ran out of the palace, and followed him to the riverside. In the blink of an eye, she had lost sight of him. She originally wanted to give up looking for him, but she did not expect that all the servants by her side had gone missing. Her heart was filled with anger, so she walked back to where she came from. However, at this time, a eunuch came over and said that the fourth prince was waiting for her and asked her to come over. Her heart was filled with joy. It seemed that the fourth prince had noticed her and had rushed over without thinking. However, after being blown by the wind for a while, she became a little more clear-headed. If a woman was found to have a private meeting with a man outside, she would be disgraced and cursed by others. She would become a dissolute woman in the eyes of the world. She had been hot-headed and agreed. While she was hesitating, Jing Mingzhu had already decided to leave. Chu Qingyin looked at the person beside her with a face full of doubt. Higashio Motetsu smiled without saying anything and pointed in a direction. She looked in the direction he was pointing and was stunned. Wasn't that Xiao Ran? What was he doing standing in the corner? Because she was in a high position, she could see Jing Mingzhu and Xiao Ran, but they could not see each other. What kind of situation was this? If it wasn't for the fact that there were people around, she really wanted to grab Higashio Motetsu's clothes and ask him for an explanation. Higashio Motetsu looked at her bright, eyes staring at him, and thought of how she had nestled in Xiao Su's arms like a little bird. He felt that this kind of person was more pleasing to the eye. He opened his mouth and silently said, "Don't make a sound. A good show is about to begin." Chu Qingyin did not understand what he meant. At this time, a scream suddenly sounded out, followed by a splash sound. She looked over in surprise and saw that there was an additional figure on the surface of the river, crying for help. "Save me! Save me!" She wanted to get up to save him, but Higashio Motetsu immediately held her down and shook his head, telling her not to make a sound. At this time, not far away, a few voices suddenly sounded out. "Oh no, Miss Chu fell in the water. Miss Chu fell into the water. The voices were not coming from this direction. Instead, they were running further and further away, with no intention of coming over to save him. Chu Qingyan was stunned. What the hell? The one who fell into the water was not her, and these people looked like they were going to announce it to the world. Was falling into the water causing such a commotion? At this time, the person in the other corner moved. Xiao Ren stepped on the wall and flew out like a bird spreading its wings. He looked so hurried that he did not see Chu Qingyan and Xiao Ren at all. He landed on the shore and saw the person struggling in the water. Without saying a word, he jumped down and paddled towards the person who had fallen into the water. All these unforeseen events happened in the blink of an eye. It was so fast that people thought they were seeing things. She watched as Xiao Ran quickly swam towards Jing Mingzhu. Knowing that Jing Mingzhu would be fine, she finally had the mood to figure out the situation. Her gaze fell on the flat shore that did not even have a single rock. She instantly narrowed her eyes and turned to look at Higashio Motetsu, who was watching the show. She was plotted against? Hearing her doubts, Higashio Motetsu patted his body and stood up. He reached out and brought her down from the roof, but he changed the direction of their landing. No matter what you think of this young master in your heart, if it wasn't her who fell into the water today, it would have been you. All right, this young master should leave now. Otherwise, I'll really be treated as an assassin. Higashio Motetsu smiled indifferently and then quickly left. Chu Qingyan watched him disappear in a few leaps and suddenly had a bold guess in her heart. She had been called over, followed by Jing Mingzhu. Jing Mingzhu had fallen into the water, but the people hiding at the side had shouted that she had fallen into the water and ran far away. At this time, Xiao Ran had run out to save her. It seemed that in ancient times, getting wet seemed to mean losing one's virginity. After falling into the water and being saved by someone, she had lost her virginity. She was so frightened that she did not notice the earth-shattering scene outside the wall. Chapter 1169. She leaned against the corner of the wall, panting. Suddenly, she heard a soft sound. She immediately became alert and whispered, "Who is it?" "It's me." The mellow voice calmed her heart. She turned to look at the person slowly walking out of the darkness. She couldn't help but lean towards him. Xiao Su took her shoulders and gently stroked her into his arms. "Don't worry, I'm here." Only then did she relax and lean against him. "I don't know what happened either. Is it related to me?" It seems so for now. Xiao Su felt that she was in low spirits. He couldn't help but tighten his grip on her shoulders. "We have to leave here first." She remembered the shouts about her falling into the water. She knew that the big ice cube had his reasons for saying that. She nodded and followed him through the secluded path to the palace. The chaos outside had nothing to do with them. Halfway there, Xiao Su suddenly stopped. He frowned in her confusion. "You have to show up at this time." With his reminder, she immediately understood and moved away from his side. The paleness on her face slowly faded away, and she regained her vitality. "Then let's go." Xiao Su was relieved to see that she recovered so quickly. He knew that the little fellow never dropped the ball on important matters. It was obvious that someone was targeting her today. It would be best if she could bear with it. If she couldn't, he was still there. Thus, the two of them blended into the crowd that was rushing towards the direction of the fall. "What? I heard that Miss Chu fell into the water." The crowd was like countless small streams that converged into a large river and then rushed to the riverside. Their voices rose and fell, and some were gloating, some were shocked, some were secretly happy, and some were indifferent. Everything that could be expected was there. Soon, they arrived at the place. At this time, Xiao Ran had just rescued her. Before he could check on her, the palace servants separated them. He remembered that the person in his arms was still breathing when he got out of the water. He heaved a sigh of relief. Empress Liang, Imperial Concubine Moon, and the others just happened to be nearby. As soon as they heard the call for help, they brought people over. Because of their gender, they were the ones who had given the order to separate Xiao Ran and the other person. What the hell is going on? How do you take care of people? As soon as Imperial Concubine Moon came up, she began to criticize the palace servants present. Although she was the one who had arranged this play, she was more shocked and angry than anyone else. Sometimes, it wasn't too much to say that she was a master of acting. Empress Liang couldn't stand Consort Yu's attitude and raised her hand to calm her down. "Don't worry, Sister Consort Yu. Let's see if the fourth prince and this young lady are all right. After all, the one who fell into the water is a young lady." Empress Liang repeatedly emphasized that the other party was a young lady, but in reality, she was mocking and gloating. Although it was a good thing that Xiao ran save someone, if the other party was an unmarried young lady, it would not be a big deal to betroth her to him. However, if the other party was a woman of the imperial court, it would not be easy to clean up the mess. She might even be forced to commit suicide to protect her reputation. Consort Yu could hear the sarcasm in Consort Yu's words, but she wanted to see Consort Yu shoot herself in the foot. The one who was protected by the palace servants was her future daughter-in-law. If Consort Yu knew that it was Ranner who saved her, she would be so angry that she would vomit blood. That's right. Let the imperial physician take a look. Although it's summer, it's not good for a young lady to come into contact with water. Consort Yu agreed with a fake smile. Empress Liang felt that Consort Yu's words were strange. At this time, the woman who fell into the water was surrounded and coughing. She couldn't help but frown and ask, "Which family's young lady fell into the water? Just now I heard that it was... The people present didn't dare to say because of Empress Liang's status, but the other palace servants stammered, their expressions flickering. Empress Liang's heart skipped a beat. She asked sternly, "Young Lady Chu." A woman next her whispered. Although her voice was soft, in such a quiet place, it spread quickly. Empress Liang's vision darkened. How could it be her? Everyone present looked at each other. Their future sister-in-law was saved by her younger brother-in-law. Although it was out of good intentions, wasn't it unintentionally making their eldest brother a cuckold? However, before Imperial Concubine Moon could open her mouth, a clear and melodious voice sounded out from the crowd. "Are you calling for me?" It was a familiar voice with a unique quality. Everyone couldn't help but look in the direction of the voice. They saw Chu Qingyan, dressed in a scarlet dress, standing out like a crane in a flock of chickens. She was bright and dazzling. At this time, she was looking at everyone with a smile. Then, accompanied by Xiao Su, she walked towards Empress Liang and Consort Yu. Qingyan pays respects to Her Imperial Highness the Empress and Consort Yu. She gracefully bowed towards them. Xiao Su also nodded indifferently towards them. Seeing her standing there perfectly fine, Empress Liang's heart settled down. She wouldn't allow anyone to embarrass her. However, Consort Yu, whose face instantly paled, looked at Chu Qingyan as if she had seen a ghost. "Why are you here?" Chu Qingyan replied with a smile. Just now, Qingyan was looking at the lanterns in front and heard someone fall into the water, so I came to take a look. Xiao Ran was wiping the water off his body. When he heard Chu Qingyan's voice, his eyes instantly widened. "Qingyan, you know it's not. Then who was the person that was saved?" Imperial Concubine Moon saw that her son was in a frozen state and immediately turned to look at the person who was surrounded. At this time, the palace servants scattered and the person wrapped in a layer of clothing revealed her face. "Jing Mingzhu, why is it you?" Xiao Ran's eyes widened as he looked at her in disbelief. However, when he turned to look at Chu Qingyan, he didn't know what to say. He thought that the person that had fallen into the water was her, but the person that had been saved was someone else. He turned to look at his mother, his expression filled with absurd doubt. Consort Yu didn't know how to explain herself at this time. How could she have known that the person who had fallen into the water had been replaced? At this time, she could only endure her son's distrust. "All right, everyone, don't just stand here. Take the fourth prince and Miss Jing away and let the imperial physician take a good look at them to see if they have any injuries." Empress Liang really wanted to admire Consort Yu's loss of composure, but as the master of the harem, she had to know when to stop. When Xiao ran past in front of Chu Qingyan, he was dazed as if he had been hit by a stick. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. "Quickly go change your clothes so you don't catch a cold." Seeing him stare at the little fellow, Xiao Su gave a low cough to remind him. The palace servant next to him also agreed. Only then did Xiao Ran leave like a ghost. After the two people involved left, Empress Liang set the carriage to leave. Consort Yu fiercely glared at Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su a few times before angrily leaving with her people. Although Empress Liang didn't pursue this matter, and it was likely that the matter would be left unsettled, everyone present still smelled something fishy and began to whisper to each other. In any case, the matter of Jing Mingzhu marrying into the imperial family was set. Some people sighed that she had a good life, and some people envied her for flying high. In short, there was no end to the topic of conversation. Chu Qingyan watched the large crowd leave and suddenly felt that this palace was very scary. It was so scary that it was like a black hole that could eat people's bones. It made people feel cold all over. At this time, her palm felt warm. She lowered her head, and her fingers were wrapped in his large hand. The cold in her body gradually dissipated. Big Ice Cube, let's go home. This place is too cold. If we're not careful, we'll fall into a trap. We should stay far away. Okay. Chapter 1170. News of what happened by the pond quickly spread. After the marriage between the two countries, there was another major incident. Although the Sichuan emperor didn't say anything, everyone could feel the emperor's displeasure. For something like this to happen at the palace banquet, it was simply shameful. The one who saved the princess was actually a prince, and those palace servants were all useless. Fortunately, the palace banquet was coming to an end, and the Sichuan emperor left after exchanging some pleasantries. Due to his health, Xiao Ho slowly walked at the back of the crowd, and the southern blue envoy deliberately fell behind. When no one was paying attention, Tori said apologetically, "Lord, we didn't think it through properly this time. We will report everything that happened today to His Highness the Crown Prince. We will do our best to compensate him." The result was already done, so there was no point in saying more. Xiao Ho still needed these people, so he smiled and said, "Okay, this prince will wait for His Highness the Crown Prince's reply." Tori knew that he was in the wrong, so he smiled embarrassedly. Pang Zhijing, who was lagging behind, didn't want to participate in their hypocritical exchange. She walked slowly by herself, but as she walked, her path was blocked by someone. She raised her head, and it was still him. "What do you want?" With the previous lesson, she subconsciously looked at him defensively. Xiao Ho looked at her indifferently and didn't put her reaction in his eyes. The thing you eavesdropped before was about Chu Qingyan, so he was concerned about the drowning incident. She nodded, and her voice was filled with joy. "That's right, but I didn't expect that the one who fell in the end wasn't Qingyan. That's great. Otherwise, if I didn't warn her, I would feel guilty for the rest of my life." Xiao Ho didn't pay attention to her nagging and laughed lightly. "They're really lucky. Their two schemes were resolved by others. I don't know if they're lucky or something else." She originally planned to make Xiao Su lose the qualifications to compete for the throne and become the target of her father's fear. However, it was ruined by Pang Zhijing at the crucial moment. The remaining good show ended with Jing Mingzhu falling into the water and Chu Qingyan escaping. Sometimes I really envy their luck. Hearing this, Pang Zhijing whispered, "This is called good will be rewarded with good, and evil will be repaid with evil. Because what you have done in the past, one day in the future, will be returned to you in a form that you do not know. Whether it is a blessing or a curse, it is all karma." Princess is so wise. It's a pity that this king doesn't know if what awaits you in the future will be fortune or disaster. So please take care of yourself and don't bring disaster to others. After Xiao Ho said this, he did not stay any longer, only coldly turning around. Pang Zhijing looked at his back as he left and stomped her feet. What a heartless and cunning fellow. The night was long. Chu Qingyan quietly leaned against the wall of the car. She looked through the window at the lonely night. Before the palace banquet ended, Xiao Su left with her in advance. They were not the main characters of today's banquet. Although they were almost pulled onto the stage in the end, they were all safe and sound. So Sichuan Emperor did not object to them leaving early. They left the bustle of the imperial palace behind them. The carriage drove further and further away. Because they left early, the road was very quiet except for a few people returning home at night. Big Ice Cube, what do you think will happen in the end? She looked up to ask him. Ever since she got on the carriage, she had been exceptionally quiet. He knew that she was probably frightened by this incident, so he did not say anything. He wanted to wait for her to figure it out herself. Although it is a good thing that fourth brother saved someone, this marriage cannot be avoided. Xiao Su calmly replied. Chu Qingyan gave a bitter laugh. If Jing Mingzhu did not fall in the water, then the last person to be saved would have been me. Thinking about it now, it is really scary. Don't think so much. You are not Jing Mingzhu. You will not be plotted against so easily. He was very confident about this. She hugged her knees and leaned against his shoulder. Her face had a rare look of sadness. Big Ice Cube, do you know? Actually, I'm not afraid of water. Even if I fall into the water, I can still save myself. What I'm afraid of is those invisible conspiracies. I don't think I've done anything wrong to anyone. Why would they try so hard to plot against me? It is hard to guard against a plot. I can't guarantee that I will fall into a trap when I am not paying attention. Moreover, it involved Dong Ting and Xiao Ran. She did not know what role they played in it, but it still made her heart cold. And this time, because of me, an innocent girl was implicated. No matter how I say it, my heart does not feel good. I did not kill Bo Run, but Bo Run died because of me. Xiao Su could feel her deep sadness. He could not help but reach out to hold her shoulders and said in a low voice, You did not do anything wrong. Don't blame yourself and don't be afraid. Even if the person who fell into the water today was you, I would never give you away. You are the one I have chosen, and you will be for life. What she was most afraid of this time was the intention of the person behind this. If this person wanted to ruin their marriage, then after this first time, there would be a second time. However, with Big Ice Cube's promise, the coldness in her heart gradually faded. She was not afraid of people's opinions and obstructions. She just did not want to face these meaningless disturbances in their short life together. The disappearing light in her eyes suddenly gathered. She reached out to hold Big Ice Cube's hand, and her expression became firm and bright. Big Ice Cube, I will never give you away. You have to be prepared to face me alone for the rest of your life, because I will protect you in all aspects. I will not let other women get close to you, and I will not let others succeed. What was the use of being depressed? She had to bring out the drive she had in the past and protect her own love by herself. Me too. Xiao Su held her hand back, responding with a domineering air. She instantly smiled brightly. Being afraid of wolves in front and tigers behind was not her personality. During this period of time in the capital, her original sharp claws had almost been ground flat. This would not do. She had to pick up her weapons again. If an evil person came, she would beat one. If two came, she would beat two. The sound of horse hooves slowly approached the prince's residence, drowned in the night. However, Higashio Motetsu had just walked into the room when he was met with a palm strike. He was hit before he could react. His chi and blood surged, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. He staggered to his feet and raised a hand to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth. He smiled softly, then raised his head to look at the furious person in front of him. "Milady, are you really angry tonight?" Dongting Fan slammed the table, and his eyes widened. "You still have the face to say that? Why did today's plan go wrong? Do you know how much trouble you've caused Xiao Ran?" Higashio Motetsu's cynical expression did not change. Plans always go wrong. I don't know why the one who fell into the water was someone else. I think you did it on purpose. Today's palm strike is a lesson for you. If something like this happens again in the future, I won't let you off easily. After venting his anger, Dongting Fan flung his sleeves and left. He did not care at all about the injuries he had suffered. He pursed the blood on his lips and suddenly laughed softly. "Little girl, I said before that I won't hurt you. So in the future, I won't let you get hurt in the slightest." Young milady, Xuanqi Zimo had just entered the room when he saw his master slowly falling to the side. He immediately cried out in alarm and rushed over. Chapter 1171. On the second day of the palace banquet, as expected, the marriage alliance between the two empires was finalized. The imperial edict for the marriage was sent out from the palace, one to Prince Yi's mansion and the other to the courier station. On the afternoon of the day the imperial edict for the marriage alliance was issued, another imperial edict was sent out directly to the Minister of Right's mansion. It announced the marriage between the fourth prince, Xiao, and Jing Mingzhu. In an instant, the whole circle boiled over. Originally, with the status of the Minister of Rights in the imperial court, Jing Mingzhu was more than qualified to be conferred the title of princess consort, according to the normal procedure. However, the emperor's heart was unpredictable. This time, the Sichuan emperor felt that he was being forced to do something beyond his ability. He was unhappy and felt that someone else had influenced his decision. Therefore, he waved his pen and gave Jing Mingzhu the position of consort. Although Jing Jin felt bitter in his heart, he could only swallow it. Who asked his daughter to be so useless and fall into the water for no reason? Fortunately, the person who saved her was the fourth prince. Otherwise, they would have no place to cry. Either there was no marriage in the imperial court, or there were two. The marriages of the two princes were settled. Suddenly, some families were happy and some were sad because there were not many positions left to compete for. The outside was bustling with noise and excitement, but the King of England's mansion was quiet and peaceful as usual. In the courtyard under the shade of the trees, Chu Qingyin and Xiao Su sat opposite each other. In front of them was a tea set. On the stone table beside them were fresh, iced melons and fruits, fragrant pastries, a round bowl of mung bean soup, and a game of Go in the middle of the table. The cool breeze blew, and everything was unrestrained and comfortable. Under the tree, the handsome man and the beautiful woman were pleasing to the eye. Chu Qingyin forked a bayberry and put it into her mouth. She ate while watching the person in front of her brew tea. Her teeth were cold and sweet. She sighed with satisfaction. This summer is suitable to avoid the heat at home. You don't have to do anything. Just eat, drink, and enjoy yourself. As she spoke, she forked another piece of fruit and held it in front of him. Xiao Su bit into it with her fork. The unique fragrance of the fruit surged in his mouth, and he felt the same way as she did. He reached out and placed the brewed tea in front of her. That makes sense. She chuckled as if she had been encouraged. She threw the fork back to the plate, shifted her position, and opened the chess box. Come. Play chess with me. Xiao Su looked at her excited appearance and didn't want to discourage her. Every time he played chess with her, she often acted shamelessly. She was not as steady as she was outside, but he liked it. When one had nothing to do, teasing one's wife was also a great joy in one's life. She took the first step and walked seriously. Every step she took was carefully thought out. Compared to her entanglement with every step she took, Xiao Su was much more casual. He casually put his hand aside and carefully admired the subtle changes on her face. Every time she was scratching her head, he would choose an insignificant place to place a piece, go easy on the water, and then enjoy her joy. The game went round and round, and it took a long time to play. Hey, how can you play here? She was still struggling like a trapped beast. Xiao Su chuckled. Then how do you think I should play? How would I know how you should play? She was going to act shamelessly to the end. Anyway, there were no outsiders here, and it was such a long day. If she didn't find something to bicker with, it would be too dull. This little guy was too bored. In the end, it still ended with her defeat. Kai, don't regret your moves. Why do you always bully the upside-down onion? A voice came out of nowhere, and Chu Qingyin's face turned slightly red. She turned her head and complained, Dad, how can you side with an outsider like this? Mr. Chu walked over with a pear in his mouth. When he heard his daughter's complaint, he said very seriously and sincerely, Son-in-law is one of us. Dad is siding with the other. Chu Qingyin felt like a mouthful of blood was stuck in her chest. Even if he wanted to trick his daughter, he shouldn't do it like this. Son-in-law, where's Blockhead? Mr. Chu didn't notice his daughter's hurt expression at all. His eyes were shining as he looked at his upside-down onion. Xiao Su handed a cup of tea to his future father-in-law and replied. In the wooden garden, Mr. Chu took the teacup and gulped it down, then casually wiped his mouth. So that's where that little brat ran off to. I'll go look for him right now. You're looking for him for something urgent? Xiao Su thought that it would be easier to get someone to call the wood spirit over. It's urgent, urgent. Mr. Chu harumphed. He promised to make me a fish hook, but it's not done yet. He didn't keep his word. Xiao Su pursed his lips. Then he'd better go look for the wood spirit himself. When the hook is done, I'll take you guys fishing. Mr. Chu chuckled. Before they could react, he ran off. Looking at the back of his figure, leaving in a hurry, Chu Qingyan facepalmed. Dad was really like a child. At this moment, Xiao Su spoke up. Ethereal and Yinluo will be back soon. Your father's illness can continue to be treated then. Chu Qingyan was pleasantly surprised to hear news of the two of them. I thought it would take them a while to come back. That's great. I wonder if Ethereal's injuries have fully healed. The most important thing is whether they've reconciled or not. When she thought of this, she couldn't wait for them to appear in front of her and answer her questions one by one. Perhaps we'll be able to attend their wedding. Xiao Su looked at his exceptionally excited little fellow with a gentle smile. They're progressing so quickly. A friend in need is indeed a friend indeed. Chu Qingyan bit down on a piece of ice with a crunch. It was so cool that it penetrated her heart and seeped into her pores. Xiao Su nodded. Ethereal is too responsible. I'm afraid he'll let Yinluo down. But it's also because of this that I feel guilty towards them. If they really get married and Ethereal doesn't have anyone in the family, you'll have to work hard to prepare for it. Chu Qingyan glared at him fiercely. Of course, whether it's Ethereal, Mu Ling, or Jin Ling, as long as I can help, I won't refuse. They've been by your side for so many years. They're your subordinates and also your family. I've long treated them as my family, so you don't have to be so courteous. Xiao Su couldn't help but smile when he heard her matter-of-fact tone. That's right. It's what you should do as the matriarch of the household. You're so annoying. She blushed at his words. When Chu Qingyan picked up the chess pieces on the chessboard, she suddenly thought of something. She looked up and asked, by the way, there was a rumor that I fell into the water that day. How did you know it wasn't me? How were you able to pinpoint my location? After all, Xiao Ran, who was the closest to her, had already jumped into the water. How could Big Ice, who knew where she was, be able to pinpoint her location in such a short time? Xiao Su replied matter-of-factly, intuition. It came from a beast's strongest intuition. Chu Qingyan was embarrassed by his answer. You're really confident. What if your intuition is wrong? He looked up at her seriously. No, I only need one look to know if the person in the water was you. He wasn't Xiao Ran, so he wouldn't mistake the person he loved for someone else. Why did she see such deep affection in his eyes? Big Ice wouldn't show such a strange expression. She must be seeing things. She immediately used her hands as a fan and flapped them desperately. Chapter 1172. The two of them played chess and ate fruits leisurely. Speaking of which, we need to prepare a lot of gifts this time. Chu Qingyan suddenly remembered, rubbing her chin as she began to think. Xiao Su raised his eyebrows and asked, Did you forget that Xiao Ho and Ji Jing are about to be married? Xiao Ran and Miss Jing are also about to be engaged. She rolled her eyes at him. Other than attending court, he didn't care about the ways of the world at all. If she hadn't been taking care of it, the matter of sending this favor would have been delayed. He was already cold enough in the outside world. If he didn't even maintain this favor on the surface, no one would dare to talk to him on the streets in the future. Hearing her words, he could guess what she was thinking. Xiao Su naturally knew about these kinds of relationships, but his status was high enough that others would only fawn on him. Moreover, he didn't like to socialize, and he preferred to be alone. But if the little fellow valued these things, he would let her do as she pleased. Chu Qingyan continued, Jijing has a good relationship with us, and Xiao Ran is your younger brother. So these two gifts must be carefully prepared. Later, I'll have the housekeeper open the storeroom and see if there's anything good. Xiao Su didn't comment, but however, as the eldest brother, it's a bit unreasonable for me to get married later than them. Xiao Su rubbed his chin. Should he mention to Imperial Father at the morning court tomorrow that he and the little fellow's marriage be arranged together? The chess piece between her two fingers almost slipped because of his words. She picked it up again, her expression uncertain as she said coquettishly, "I'm talking to you about serious matters." "What are you talking about?" "I'm also talking about serious matters, and it's more important than what you're doing now," Xiao Su replied seriously. Chu Qingyin's face burned even hotter. She muttered, "You're really not serious." Xianmo's eyes flashed with a hint of a smile. Knowing that she was shy, Xiao Su called Hualing over. "Master, are you looking for this subordinate?" Hualing stood up straight. "When is the marriage between the third prince and the southern blue princess?" Xiao Su asked. "August 25th. Fourth prince's engagement date, August 26th. Chu Qingyan listened from the side and was slightly surprised. "So fast. Doesn't that mean it's only a month?" Hualing nodded and explained. When the southern blue envoy left, the dowry had already been transported over. The Ministry of Rites has also prepared the wedding. As long as the marriage partner is confirmed, the wedding can be held at any time. The reason why we set aside a month's time is to send the news back to the southern blue continent and invite them to attend the wedding. While Chu Qingyan and Hualing were talking, Xiao Su's thoughts fell onto another matter, and that was no matter how he brought forward his marriage with the little fellow, it seemed to be unable to catch up with them, and he couldn't help but feel slightly depressed in his heart. "So it's like that. No wonder I said it would be like holding a wedding in a short month. That's too fast," she muttered to herself. Xiao Su muttered in his heart. If he ignored those red tape, he would be able to marry the little fellow in 3 days. Because the weather was too hot, other than the servants in the courtyard, everyone else had gone into hiding. A red figure circled around the long corridor and appeared outside the kitchen. Huang, he was ordering people to get water at this time. When she saw the person who came, she couldn't help but smile. "Hong Ijieji, it's so hot today. Why aren't you resting in your room? What are you doing here?" Hong, he shook the jar in her hand in front of her. "I heard that the little princess has recently fallen in love with iced fruits. I just happened to go to the ice cellar, and the person in charge said that the kitchen should add more ice, so he asked me to bring it over." "You really are too considerate. I was just about to send someone to get it." Huang, he took the jar and gave it to the servant girl behind her. She smiled as she gave her thanks. At this time, Xining happened to come to the kitchen to get something. When she came out, she couldn't help but nod with a smile before leaving. Hong Yi saw the servant girls following behind Xining, and jealousy flashed through her eyes. In the past, in the inner courtyard, only the head servant girls had the right to be surrounded by attendants. But now, the tables had turned. She had been stripped of her power and became a dispensable passerby in the inner courtyard. Thinking about it, she really couldn't accept it. Seeing Hong Yi keep looking at Xining, Huang Yi said with a faint smile, "Don't you feel that this little girl is very obedient?" Hong Yi said with a fake smile, "She is very obedient." Huang Yi didn't understand the meaning of her smile. Coincidentally, a servant called her, and she turned to respond. Hong Yi saw that she was so busy that she couldn't leave, so she wandered outside. At this time, a servant girl came out with a basket full of red dates. She thought for a moment and then pinched the things in her sleeve. She then pretended to casually walk over. Even though Hong Yi wasn't in charge of the inner courtyard, her authority was still there, adding on her status as a head servant girl. The servant girl who was looking for a place to dry things stopped and bowed when she saw her come over. "Hong Yi Jiejia." Hong Yi smiled cordially. "What are you planning to do?" "It's like this. Didn't it rain 2 days ago? The red dates weren't covered tightly and were slightly damp. Auntie had me take them out to dry. She said that she was going to prepare red dates and white fungus soup for Wang Fei in the next 2 days." The servant girl replied truthfully. Hong Yi nodded slightly. Before and after Wang Fei's menstruation, the kitchen would always prepare this soup for her. Calculating it was almost time, she walked forward and flipped through the little basket to inspect the red dates. Then you can't be careless. Look carefully later to see if there are any moths. Remember to pick them out. If it wasn't for Hong Yi Jiejia's reminder, I wouldn't have thought of this. The servant girl nodded gratefully. She listened to her suggestion and carefully searched. Hong Yi watched as the servant girl squatted there and carefully inspected. The corner of her mouth slowly curled. The silver needle between her 2 fingers disappeared into her sleeve, and then it couldn't be seen anymore. Chu Qingyan, this time, I don't believe you have the luck to escape. Huang Yi left the little girl's side, and with a calm expression, she chatted with the people in the courtyard for a while. When Huang Yi finished her work and turned around, she was already gone. Huang Yi looked at the servant girl who was seriously picking the red dates on the ground, and then looked around. She had a puzzled expression. Where was Huang Yi? Ever since the power in Huang Yi's hands had been taken away by the little Wang Fei, she had been worried that she wouldn't be able to handle this kind of treatment and make a fuss. It was a pity that after she received a new recipe from the little Wang Fei, she spent all her time in the kitchen. She became busier and busier and basically didn't have time to chat with her. Huang Yi often locked herself in her room and didn't interact much with other people. They were sisters, so she was very worried about her. Forget it. After she finished researching the new dishes tomorrow and the day after, she would go find her to talk and relieve her boredom. Thinking about this, Huang Yi acted like she had solved a major problem and then walked briskly into the kitchen. The kitchen was her favorite place. It would be even better if she could live in it. Chapter 1173. At night, Chu Qingyan had just finished bathing and was preparing to go to bed to rest when there was a loud knock on her door. Her brows jumped up, and she immediately opened the door. Huoling, what is it? When she opened the door and saw Huoling and his rash appearance, Chu Qingyan had a bad premonition, so she immediately asked this. Huoling did not waste any time as he quickly said, according to Xiao Lai's cavalry who is watching over Snowflake Cake and the others, Glutinous Rice Ball hasn't eaten anything since yesterday. They thought it was because the weather was too hot and the little thing had no appetite, so no one paid any attention. However, today, Glutinous Rice Ball has been completely listless and won't drink any water. Bai Yutong and the others have been circling around it, but nothing has happened. 2 hours ago, Glutinous Rice Ball began vomiting and the situation doesn't seem to be good. How could it be like this? Does His Highness know? Chu Qingyan stepped out the door and prepared to leave the palace. Pigeon Feather sent a letter, so this subordinate immediately came to report to you. Master hasn't reported yet. Mu Ling saw her anxious appearance and immediately stopped her. Little princess, calm down first. I've already sent someone to call a veterinarian. You should wait for Master to come first before discussing this matter. Huoling's heart was filled with anxiety. He couldn't let the little princess leave like this. The city gates were already closed, and she couldn't leave at all. It was also possible that she would fall into the eyes of others. Her heart felt like it was being scratched by thousands of ants, so how could she calm down? At this time, Xiao Su walked into the yard with large steps after receiving the news. Seeing the little fellow's worried expression, his brows slightly knit. Turin has already told me about the situation, so don't worry. Animals are the same as people. They can also get sick. As long as the right medicine is used, they can be cured. These words were like a reassuring pill, easing her anxious mood. Big Ice Cube, I want to see Glutinous Rice Ball. She grabbed his hand as a pleading look appeared in her eyes. She knew that this request was very difficult, but she couldn't control this thought. When Little Annoyance left, he was so assured in leaving the three of them to her. If something happened today and Little Annoyance came back, how would she explain it? It was rare to see her like this. Xiao Su turned and ordered Huoling, no matter what method you use, bring the glutinous rice ball into the Wang Fu. Huoling felt his head swell. Bringing such a powerful snow wolf into the city in the middle of the night was like climbing a mountain. Although it said that the young princess consort is confused because of her concern, Master, why are you fooling around with her? But he didn't dare to say this out loud. They had to do whatever their master told them to do. Even if there was no road ahead, they had to find a way out. Huoling gave the order to Dove Feather and then quickly led people out to provide support. The two of them sat in the room, and Chu Qingyan was worried. Big Ice Cube, do you think Huoling and the others can bring the glutinous rice ball in? Glutinous rice ball is the smallest of the three. Although it is more delicate than its two older brothers, it has never been sick in a long time. I really can't calm down. Seeing the person he cared about the most get angry for someone else, even if it was a pet, Xiao Su couldn't help feeling a bit jealous. However, He could understand her feelings. Although the little fellow had a straightforward personality, she was very meticulous and was very good to the people around her. As long as it was someone or something she cared about, she would treat it wholeheartedly. How could he not feel pity for such a kind person? He pulled her into his embrace and gently stroked her back as he comforted her. "It's fine. You'll be able to see it later." When one was worried and couldn't see or touch something, they would be even more restless. The little fellow was like this. She snuggled up to him as she gazed out of the courtyard. Time passed bit by bit, and 2 hours passed. Suddenly, there was a commotion outside. Chu Qingyin stood up in shock, and Xiao Su followed her gaze and looked out. At this time, Huo Ling was holding something in his hand. It was covered in a black cloth as he walked over with steady steps. "Master, little princess, as expected, glutinous rice ball is here." After saying this, the black cloth was removed and the dying glutinous rice ball appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Chu Qingyin immediately came forward and stroked the glutinous rice ball's head with heartache. It was burning hot, and she exclaimed, the doctor said it has a high fever. Take it down to treat it first." Xiao Su ordered in a deep voice. Huo Ling immediately carried it to the next room, and the doctor in the yard was also brought over. Chu Qingyin also wanted to follow, but she was pulled back by the person beside her. She turned her head with a questioning gaze. "Don't worry, it'll be fine." Xiao Su squeezed her hand and then let go of her. She nodded gratefully and then left the room. When she arrived, the doctor was already feeding the glutinous rice ball medicine. However, it was unknown whether it was the instinct of a beast or some other reason, but the glutinous rice ball kept its mouth shut. No matter what he did, it would not open its mouth. As a result, the medicinal soup could not be fed, let alone the pills. The doctor was helpless, but the people standing next to him were all cold and aggressive. His hands trembled, and the medicinal soup spilled. At this time, a pair of slender and beautiful hands took his medicine bowl and said in a gentle voice, "Let me do it." As if he had been pardoned, the doctor immediately retreated, looking at the little girl's benevolent countenance. As if she could make a decision, he trembled as he reported the situation. "This guy is allergic to pollen and has a poor appetite. Coupled with the rain from 2 days ago, he fell ill immediately. Otherwise, with such a big body, there wouldn't be any injuries at all. Can this illness be cured?" Chu Qingyin asked in a worried voice. The doctor shook his head. "It's a bit late now. Feed it the medicine first. It'll be fine if the fever goes down. But if it doesn't go down by tonight, what will happen if it doesn't go down by tonight?" Her heart was filled with worry. The doctor looked at her and carefully said, "Have you seen a child with a high fever that won't go down and then become confused after growing up? It might also become like this." Chu Qingyin was instantly stunned. Become stupid? She gritted her teeth. No, she definitely couldn't let the glutinous rice ball become like this. She calmed her heart and squatted down in front of it. She tried to use a cheerful tone to say, "Glutinous rice ball, I'm here to feed you something good to eat." Glutinous rice ball was in a state of alert. When the doctor approached, its entire body tensed up. Now that its mistress was near, it seemed to be able to sense a familiar aura. Gradually, it relaxed its fur. Chu Qingyin reached out to stroke its head, and it became obedient. She took the opportunity to feed it the medicine. One mouthful after another, it went very smoothly. The doctor on the side was shocked. This fellow really understands human nature. Huo Ling and the others looked at each other. Of course, this fellow had been struggling the entire time, not willing to be carried back. If it wasn't for them saying that it could see the little princess, it wouldn't have been so quiet and obedient. After feeding it the entire bowl, Chu Qingyin anxiously asked, "Doctor, is there anything else we need to do?" The doctor stroked his long beard and said, "It'll depend on luck." Chapter 1174. The doctor's words made her feel very uncertain, and she didn't dare to leave the glutinous rice ball. The glutinous rice ball unconsciously hummed on the bed. The sound was very weak, but it could be felt that it was very uncomfortable. Stroking the tangled hair on its body, Chu Qingyin coaxed it in a low voice. "Be good, get better quickly. I'll give you a bath." But the glutinous rice ball still didn't have any reaction. She could only sigh helplessly and anxiously. Because the glutinous rice ball was suddenly brought back, some secret methods were used. Xiao had just gone to deal with the aftermath to prevent people from using it as an excuse. When he finished, it was already the middle of the night. He walked into the yard. "Where's the princess?" Hualing, who was standing guard outside, immediately replied, "Little princess is still inside, keeping her company." Xiao nodded and turned to enter the room. When he looked up, he saw the person sleeping on the edge of the bed. His gaze swept over her tired face, and he walked over. He reached out to carry her back to the room. When he moved, the person who couldn't sleep soundly slowly opened her eyes. Seeing him, she immediately sat up and rubbed her eyes. "What time is it now?" "1 in the afternoon." Xiao paused. "Go back and rest first. It's fine to send someone to keep watch here." She shook her head. "No need, I'll leave it here. You still have morning court tomorrow, so go back and rest first. I can do it alone." With her like this, how could he sleep peacefully? He pulled over a chair to sit with her and wait. Seeing her insist on urging him to leave, he gave a low laugh. In the past, it was normal to not sleep for days on the battlefield. "This isn't anything. I'll stay with you tonight." His sour eyes suddenly welled up with tears. Generally, people in high positions like them would not have any compassion for animals, let alone take care of them, as if they were family or friends when they were injured or sick. They would only feel that it was a waste of time, energy, and feelings. But the big ice cube was different from them. He never felt that what she did was unreasonable. He would think from her point of view, put himself in her shoes, love what she loved, think what she thought, and never doubted her because of their different views. How short was life? How many people had passed by one side? To be able to meet such a person who could tolerate you no matter when, where, and what happened was the most precious happiness in this world. Seeing that her big eyes were wet, Xiao thought that it was because she was too worried about glutinous rice ball. He could not help but laugh and pull her into his arms. "What's there to cry about? Glutinous rice ball is still lying there. You have to believe in the resilience of wolves, especially the descendants of the Snow Wolf King. Their vitality is far stronger than we think." She nodded heavily against his shoulder. After another 2 hours, that doctor was dragged over by Hualing. His eyes were hazy, but he did not dare throw a tantrum. He obediently went forward to take glutinous rice ball's pulse and feel her limbs. Very quickly, the sleepiness in his eyes disappeared, and he happily said, "Very good, very good. The fever is gone." Chu Qingyan finally felt relieved. "So you're saying that he's fine now?" Xiao asked coldly. The doctor trembled in fear from this question and quickly replied, "As long as he's fed a few bowls of cold repellent and allergy medicine, he should be able to recover in 2 or 3 days." Chu Qingyan seriously listened. Although the doctor was very scared, his words were very calm. It could be seen that glutinous rice ball was already out of danger as her entire body relaxed. The doctor was taken away, and there was only Chu Qingyan and Xiao left in the room. She squatted down in front of the bed and reached out to pat glutinous rice ball's head. She gently said, "You really are good. You have to get better soon. I'll have people prepare a lot of delicious food for you." Xiao lowered his head and took in her gentle and elegant demeanor. He reached out and stroked her head, the corners of his mouth gentle. The next morning, Chu Qingyan had just woken up when she heard the commotion in the courtyard. She slept late last night, and her head still hurt a little. She couldn't help but struggle to get up and asked Xining, who pushed the door open, "Who's outside?" Xining walked over with a basin of water. "It's first old Master Chu." He knew about glutinous rice ball's illness, so he rushed over in a hurry. He's now in a room talking to glutinous rice ball. She rubbed her temples. It happened so suddenly and in the middle of the night, so it wasn't convenient for her to inform her father. However, he knew about it now, but based on how much her father doted on these little ones, she couldn't tell how much her father's heart ached right now. As expected, when she walked to the door, she heard her father's self-reproachful voice. "Glutinous rice ball, I didn't take good care of you and caused you to be bedridden. You have to get better quickly, or else how can I face your mother? I promise you, when you're better, I'll take you fishing. I'll eat the fish and you'll eat the bones." Look, I'm so good to you. So you have to get better quickly. What the hell was her father talking about? Chu Qingyin coughed lightly and stepped into the door. Her father turned his head when he heard the sound and immediately rushed over with tears in his eyes. Kai, glutinous rice ball is sick. Daddy feels like I'm sick too. I don't have any strength. She supported her father, her scalp tingling as she said, "That's because you haven't had breakfast yet." As she spoke, she turned around. Huang Yi, who was following behind her, brought in their breakfast with a few servants. Chu Qingyin's father rubbed his eyes and chuckled. I was in too much a hurry just now and didn't have time to eat. Now that you mention it, Daddy is really hungry. She laughed and shook her head, then pushed her father to sit down and eat. She walked to the bed to check on Glutinous Rice Ball. At this moment, Glutinous Rice Ball had already woken up, but its eyes were half closed and it looked very lethargic. However, when it saw its beloved master, it would try its best to wag its tail. It looked so obedient that it made one's heart ache. She bent down and touched its head. It was at a normal temperature, and it didn't look like it was getting sick again. Glutinous Rice Ball stuck out its tongue and licked her hand, whimpering weakly. She smiled gently and comforted it. At this moment, a drumstick appeared in her vision, followed by her father's voice. Look, it's a big drumstick. Get better quickly, and I'll let you eat it. It smells so good. It's so delicious. Looking at her father, who looked like a big bad wolf trying to tempt a little white rabbit, Chu Qingyin felt that it was funny. Glutinous Rice Ball rolled its eyes at him very plaintively. Great old master, I'm already in enough pain. Please don't add insult to injury. On this day, Hong Yi's heart couldn't help but beat faster when she saw that there was no movement after she had poisoned the food. She went to the kitchen to ask around and found out that there was a rare guest in the courtyard who was being taken care of by Chu Qingyin, so she didn't have time to take care of her body. However, Lord had already instructed the kitchen to brew some nutritious tonics for her, so the kitchen was in full swing preparing today. Whether it was making soup or cooking, red dates were all seasonings, so she wasn't afraid that she wouldn't be able to use them. After hearing this news, Hong Yi left in satisfaction. Chapter 1175. Even though Xiao Su had protected the inner courtyard so that not even a drop of water could leak out, the addition of a giant animal in the courtyard had more or less aroused the curiosity and speculation of the servants. It was just that other than Xi Ning and Bai Yu, no one was able to get close to that room. Everyone was curious, but they didn't dare to violate their prince's rules. Wolves were rare in places where humans lived in groups. If people found out that they had a wolf in captivity, and that it was a snow wolf with a noble bloodline, not only would it alarm those curious people, it would even alarm the Sichuan emperor. This was the so-called treasuring a jade ring becomes a crime. After Glutinous Rice Ball's fever subsided, Chu Qingyin took good care of it. After she personally fed it 2 doses of medicine, Glutinous Rice Ball's spirit improved greatly. However, it still lay weakly all day long, but compared to its previous state of being on the verge of death, it was already much better. In the evening, the weather was not so hot, and Glutinous Rice Ball could move around. It was lying in her arms and acting coquettishly. At this time, Xiao, who had been busy for the past few days, appeared in front of her. I was wondering why the security outside was so tight. It turns out that they're hiding a treasure. As soon as she entered the door, Xiao unceremoniously drank a large pot of water. She was travel-worn, but her small face was radiant and looked very pleasing to the eye. Chu Qingyin teased Glutinous Rice Ball while looking up and smiling. It can't be helped. Its existence is too special. When it recovers, I'll send it back. By the way, why did you come back so early today? Xiao walked over and asked about Glutinous Rice Ball. However, when she was stroking its fur, she heard her friend's words and could not help but roll her eyes. It's such a hot day, and I'm so busy that I'm like charcoal. It's not easy for me to come back early today. It's fine if you don't comfort me, but you actually asked me why I'm back so early? Am I born to be a laborer? Can't you have some compassion? Chu Qingyin immediately raised her hands in surrender. Okay, I was wrong. May I ask if you're tired today, big boss? Do you need this little one to serve you? Come, massage my shoulders. Massage my legs. Hua Xiaoli sat on the chair like a master and patted his shoulder, waiting for her to serve him. Chu Qingyan gave her a playful shove. You're really like a dye house. Hua Xiao was pushed back by her. She twisted her waist and leaned against her like a clingy little animal. The soft body under her hand made Hua Xiao sigh. You're indeed the land of warmth and tenderness. No wonder the King of England fell in love with you, even though there are so many fresh flowers outside. Chu Qingyan shook her head helplessly. Seriously, how are the sales of the products recently? Upon hearing this, Hua Xiao seemed to have been hit on her laughing acupoint. She threw her head back and laughed wildly. Glutinous Rice Ball, who was at the side, was quite frightened by her. She patted Chu Qingyan's shoulder and was overjoyed. Let me tell you, it's like making a fortune every day. The flow of people is like a torrential river, endless. Chu Qingyan was dumbfounded. What kind of idiom was she using? After her craziness, Hua Xiaoli became a little more serious. She leaned against the back of the chair calmly. The recent account book hasn't been sent to you yet, so you definitely don't know about the recent sales situation. It's basically sold out as soon as it's on the shelves. You don't know, but our products are in a state of shortage every day. I'm here today to ask you if you want to increase the production scale. Chu Qingyan was stunned. She knew that these products could make money, but she didn't expect that they would be sold out like this. It's actually popular to this extent? That's right. Hua Xiaoli leaned over and chuckled. The capital is the hub of the country. The people in the upper echelons here have a lot of connections in their hands. Moreover, their words and deeds will have a driving effect, causing the people below to follow suit. The business we've been doing recently isn't just targeted at individuals. It's basically a family or a mansion. You also know that there are many women in the backyard. As long as the entire mansion buys from us, we'll make a lot of money just by doing this. Moreover, there are already many people who are buying and shipping to other towns. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but grin. In that case, it's time for us to open a branch. That's right. Now is the best time to open up a channel. Just now, when we talked about increasing the production scale, it's secondary. Our main problem is that we need someone to take on this heavy responsibility. You know, the location and the source of the goods aren't important. What's important is that we need someone to take care of things. If we don't have an outstanding manager, we won't be able to achieve the effect at all. It's better to have nothing than to have something substandard. Hua Xiaoli talked about business clearly and logically. She was no longer as jumpy as before. Chu Qingyan agreed with her words. After pondering for a moment, she said, How about this? When Big Ice Cube comes back, I'll ask him if he can pick a few from Jean Ling's subordinates. That's great. When husband and wife do business, it'll be twice the result with half the effort. Hua Xiaoli winked at her and smiled. Chu Qingyan glared at her fiercely. Thus, the two of them began to discuss which city to start expanding from. Although the two of them were not very old, and in Jingdo, they were about the same age as those 15 or 16-year-old unmarried girls who were as beautiful as flowers and jade and did not know the hardships of the world. However, they were already as experienced as veterans in the business world. Their actions were thorough, and their thinking was meticulous. It was hard to imagine that such outstanding-looking girls already had a huge chain of capital behind them. The two of them talked in full swing for a long time, and their mouths were dry. At this time, Xining and Jasper each came in with a bowl of iced white fungus and red date soup. Because you came just in time. I'm hungry. Hua Xiaoli immediately waved at them and said impatiently. Chu Qingyan saw her impatient look and couldn't help but laugh. You can eat later. Let the ice melt a little. That way, it'll have a refreshing taste. That's reasonable. Hua Xiaoli wasn't in a hurry anymore. She held her chin and suddenly said, Qingyan, are we like what you said? We can clearly rely on our looks to make a living, but we have to rely on our talents. Chu Qingyan expressed her disdain for a certain person who was sticking gold on her face. At this time, she noticed that glutinous rice ball on the bed had been looking at her with pitiful eyes. It seemed that she had neglected it when she was discussing business with Hua Xiaoli. She immediately sat down by the bed apologetically and comforted it. "This pet of yours has turned into a spirit," Huaxioli joked. Although she had seen a few of her good friend's pets, she wasn't familiar with most of them. Seeing the scene now was a bit novel. Animals can understand humans, Chu Qingyin said gently. Huaxioli nodded, expressing her understanding. At this time, Xining handed the red dates soup to her master. Chu Qingyin reached out to receive it. Just at this time, Glutinous Rice Ball raised its chin and placed it on her bent elbow. With a heavy weight, she couldn't hold the bowl, and the entire soup bowl fell to the ground. Glutinous Rice Ball realized that it had caused trouble and immediately lowered its head and whimpered. Chu Qingyin didn't mind and prepared to let Xining clean up the floor. Suddenly, Jasper exclaimed, "Master, look at the floor." Chu Qingyin immediately looked down. There was a green leaf that had floated in from outside the window in the soup that was scattered all over the floor. At this time, it was turning black at a speed visible to the naked eye. She instantly raised her voice. "Don't touch that soup in Huaxioli, it's poisonous." Chapter 1176. As soon as she said this, Huaxioli, who was about to reach out to take the bowl, froze in place in fright. Jasper squatted down to test the poison with a silver needle. The moment the silver needle touched the soup, the entire needle turned black. Jasper said with a grave expression, "Master, although this subordinate doesn't know what poison this is, it is extremely toxic. I'm afraid that once it touches you, you will immediately die." "What's the situation? Someone poisoned you?" Huaxioli asked in a small voice as she approached Chu Qingyin in a panic. "It looks like it." Chu Qingyin's expression was a bit dark, and her charming face was cold. Huaxioli's face was a bit green. "That's strange. Did you make any enemies? Why would someone poison you for no reason?" Chu Qingyin shook her head. She also didn't know who wanted to kill her. She ordered in a low voice, "Xining, call Turin in. Don't make this matter public first." This unforeseen event made everyone present gasp. At this time, Xining received the order and went out without another word. While waiting, time was long. Huaxioli and Jasper didn't know what she was going to do next. The atmosphere was a bit cold. Chu Qingyin silently looked out the window. After a moment, she reached out to stroke Glutinous Rice Ball's head and softly said with a smile, "Glutinous Rice Ball, you did really well just now." If it wasn't for Glutinous Rice Ball's interruption, she might have already gone to see the King of Hell. Snow foxes understood human nature. Glutinous Rice Ball could feel the fluctuations in her master's emotions. She couldn't help sticking out her tongue and rubbing her fingers, as if she was comforting her, telling her not to be sad. In the blink of an eye, Turin quickly followed Xining into the room. The moment he entered, he felt the unusual atmosphere in the room. The relaxed expression on his face quickly disappeared. He walked in front of Chu Qingyin and asked with a serious expression, "Little princess consort, why are you looking for this subordinate?" "Turin, there are ghouls in the mansion," Chu Qingyin said with a serious expression. Jasper told him what had happened just now. Turin was stunned, and his face gradually turned ugly. The security of the prince's mansion was in charge of his secret guards. Last time when his master was drugged, he had increased the number of people guarding every corner. He did not expect that someone would take advantage of the loophole this time. His gaze fell on the porcelain bowl that had been knocked over on the ground, and a lingering fear surged in his heart. The person who had poisoned the young princess consort's life. If he had not discovered it in time, then at this moment he did not dare to think of the consequences. Based on his master's temperament, he would not let this matter go so easily. Turin bowed his head and asked, "What do you plan to do now, Your Highness?" Something had happened, but she had kept it a secret. She had called him in alone without alerting anyone else. He had a faint guess that the young princess consort had a plan at this time. That's right, Chu Qingyin stood and walked in front of him, her expression serious. "This matter could be hidden from your secret guard surveillance. This person is either very skilled or very skilled in disguise. When they poisoned the princess, they did not leave any traces. If we investigate with great fanfare, we will only alert the enemy. Rather than wait for them to come, it is better to take the initiative. In these months, she had restrained her edge, put away her claws, and dutifully acted as the little rice worm of the King of England's consort. But there was someone who did not let her go. Her brows rose, and her eyes flashed with a sharp light. If people do not offend me, I will not offend them. If people offend me, I will not let them go. Turin felt the person in front of him suddenly change. It was different from her usual reserved aura, but it made him have the illusion that he could not help but lower his head. As your highness commands. Good, let's do it like this. 15 minutes later. Not good, not good. Someone come. The princess consort has fainted. The tightly shut door was suddenly opened from the inside. Xining ran out in a panic. She cried as she shouted, her voice penetrating. The people in the yard did not know what had happened, but seeing Xining, the highest-ranking first-rank Yahuan of the princess consort, so panicked, a few words floated above everyone's head. Something big had happened. Very quickly, the entire yard boiled. Hong, he had been waiting in her room. She knew that the lotus seed would appear in front of Chu Qingyan in the next few days. What she could do was to prepare an alibi for herself before it happened. When it was investigated, she would not be afraid of being suspected. At this moment, she heard Xiao mumbling outside. Her heart skipped a beat. Had they succeeded? She was excited and immediately opened the door. At this time, a servant passed by with a panicked expression. She immediately opened her mouth and pretended to be at a loss as she asked, Xiaoqing, what happened? Xiaoqing's face was full of anxiety. Hong yi jiejia, something bad has happened. The princess consort suddenly fainted. Right now, everyone is looking for a doctor in the city. Hong yi was pleasantly surprised. Sure enough, it was effective, but she could not show it. She was also frightened. Then let's quickly go and see if there's anything we can help with. At this time, she had to go and investigate the situation. When Hong Yi walked in the yard, she saw doctors coming in and out. They came in a hurry and left with pale faces. At this time, a doctor staggered out. Hong Yi acted like she was protecting her master and went up to greet him. Doctor, how is my princess consort? That doctor shook his head with a grave expression. Then he sighed and walked towards the door of the yard. At this time, another two doctors came out together and whispered, It's a pity, so young. Hong Yi's eyes lit up. It seemed that she had been poisoned. She was secretly happy, but her face was full of worry. Although that person had said that the poisoned person would immediately go to the Yellow Springs when he gave her the medicine, now it seemed that it would not be that quick. Perhaps it was related to the dosage of the medicine. But she viciously thought, if she could torture Chu Qingyan before she died, why not? At this time, she really wanted to go in and see how Chu Qingyan struggled before she died. It was a pity that the door was completely surrounded. She did not even have a chance to get close. What do you mean you're the best doctor in the capital? You can't even treat an illness. Xining's flustered and exasperated voice came from the room. Jasper reprimanded her. It's no use for you to be anxious now. Lord has not returned yet. Our people can't enter the palace to call for an imperial doctor. Don't make any more trouble. Xining felt very wronged. Then what do we do? Master's situation is not looking good. Be quiet. Don't spread the news right now. I've already sent people to find His Highness and have His Highness call for an imperial doctor from the palace. We'll just have to see if Master can hold on for this period of time. Jasper's voice was also trembling. It was clear that she was holding on. Hearing the intermittent sounds coming from the room, Hong Yi's lips slowly curled up. Very good. Everything was going smoothly. These two girls who hadn't even grown their hair, yet were completely unable to hold up the situation at this time. When Lord came back, he would probably only see Chu Qingyan's corpse. This was really satisfying. Chapter 1177. When Xiao Su returned to the Wang Fu with a gloomy face, the entire Wang Fu was in a mess. Huiling followed behind him. When he saw this scene, he unconsciously looked at his master. Today, his master had been asked to stay by His Majesty to discuss some matters. He had stayed for the entire day. As soon as he left the palace, he was stopped by the servants waiting outside. They said that the young Wang Fei had suddenly fainted. His master's expression immediately changed. He pulled a horse from the side and quickly rushed back. No one could catch up. This was the first time he had seen his master panic. He didn't have his usual calm appearance at all. On the way back, his master's expression was tense. His face was so dark that it could drip water. When he came back, the steward and the others waiting outside didn't know anything about the young Wang Fei's illness. Only the doctors on the road carried their medicine boxes and sighed as they left. This strange atmosphere made his master's head become gloomy again. Hualing didn't know until today that his master, who was omnipotent, also had a day when he was afraid. In his heart, he hoped that the young Wang Fei would be fine. But the scene in front of him, Hualing felt like his heart was being pulled. I heard that the steward has already invited the best doctors in the capital, but they can't do anything about the Wang Fei's illness. That's right. They can't do anything, but they've already invited all the doctors they can. Do you think the Wang Fei will the words beautiful women have a short life suddenly stopped when they saw a lord standing there coldly? The servant girls were so scared that their legs turned to jelly and they immediately knelt down. Send these people away and sell them. Xiao Su expressionlessly walked past the gossiping servants and left this sentence. Hualing looked at the servants who instantly turned pale and shook his head. They should never have crossed his master's bottom line. The person inside was his master's life. At this time, Xiao Su had already walked to Chu Qingyin's courtyard. At this time, the door was closed and Turin had sent people to guard outside. Seeing him come back, Turin immediately went up to greet him. Master. Before he could finish speaking, Xiao Su had already brushed past him, pushed open the door, and entered somewhat impatiently. Turin was stunned. Then he looked at Hualing. Hualing sighed. Master has been like this the entire journey. That's right. What is the princess consort situation now? Turin was even more confused. Didn't the people we sent tell you clearly? Hualing was also stunned. Say what? Turin's face twitched. That's bad. After entering, Xiao Su went straight to the bed. Just on the way, his rationality left him and his mind was in a mess. He thought that he would come back to see the pale and dying little fellow, but when he looked up, he saw the little face talking and laughing with someone. It was as if he was told that there was a cliff in front of him, but he couldn't control himself and rushed forward. When he reached the edge of the cliff, he was caught by a branch on the side. Chu Qingyin heard the sound and looked over. Seeing that it was him, she couldn't help but grin. You're back. He didn't get a response after he finished speaking. She saw him standing there like a rock, not moving at all. The expression on his face was a bit strange. Hua Xiuli, Jasper, and the others who were chatting with her in a room noticed his strange expression and tactfully prepared to leave. Before Hua Xiuli left, she winked at her. You've gone too far. Faced with her good friend's teasing, she couldn't refute. After the door was closed, she stood up from the bed and walked towards him with a nervous heart. Big Ice Cube, are you all right? When she arrived in front of him, she was pulled into his embrace by a strong force. Her head bumped into his hard chest, and she was stunned for a moment, but the force that followed was so strong that she couldn't breathe. Following that, a storm of kisses fell down. She was forced to raise her head to withstand the waves in his heart. She felt the iron-like hand on her waist with a scorching temperature, as if it was going to burn her skin. Every time they went deeper, it was accompanied by the trembling of their souls. They were grinding and entangling with each other. Over and over again, he didn't allow her to retreat. He swept through all of her territory forcefully, as if he wanted to use this method to repeatedly confirm that the person in front of him was still alive and well. At first, she wasn't ready, but after feeling the strong uneasiness from his body, she didn't reject him anymore. She reached out her hands to hug him back. If it wasn't for her entire body leaning on him, she would have collapsed to the ground. This seemed to be the first time she saw such a big ice cube who didn't care about anything. At this moment, she finally understood the meaning behind Hua Xiuli's words. It wasn't easy for him to let her go. She opened her mouth to explain, but she heard a hoarse voice murmur, "It's good that you're fine. It's good that you're fine." At that moment, a certain place in the depths of her heart seemed to have been hit hard by someone. It was sore and warm. Tears welled up in her eyes as she choked on her sobs. I'm fine, I'm not poisoned. She quickly explained, afraid that he would worry too much. Her heart, that had been suspended in mid-air, fell back to the ground. Xiao Su raised his head. His dark eyes were like a layer of glass, blocking the surging waves below. This pair of eyes, even if emotionless, was still moving. Moreover, they were filled with emotions. What happened? He knew that there must be a reason for this. At this moment, the warmth of the person in his arms made him feel at ease, and his rationality returned. Only then did he have the heart to ask her what happened. She was bewitched by his eyes just now, and when she heard his magnetic and hoarse voice, she almost fell into a daze again. Fortunately, she kept her infatuated heart and told him what happened today in a concise and comprehensive manner. When she told him, she avoided the important points and only mentioned the toxicity of the poison. The other party is in the dark while we're in the light. This is very disadvantageous for us. If we want to find this person and prevent future troubles, we have to lure the snake out of its hole. So I plan to beat them at their own game and pretend that I'm really poisoned, then lure them in. After telling him her plan, she looked at his expression and then stammered, I didn't let anyone inform you in advance because I wanted to create an effect for the acting. I didn't expect your reaction to be so big. Xiao Su didn't care about what she said at the end. His gaze fell on her as deep as water. His eyes were pitch black, making people unable to see what he was thinking. If he wanted to kill someone, just one drop was enough. If that bowl of soup wasn't accidentally knocked over by the glutinous rice ball, then his little fellow would have already... She wanted to wait for his criticism, but she didn't want to be hugged by him again. Only this time, she felt that the hand around her seemed to be trembling. Big Ice Cube, are you okay? I'm sorry, I shouldn't have kept it from you and made you worried. She was a little regretful and said hurriedly, but he hugged her even harder. Ian, do you know what it means to survive a disaster? She was stunned. Just now I experienced it. Survive a disaster. Chapter 1178. The news that Chu Qingyan was seriously ill and unconscious spread through the Wang Fu not long after. Xiao Su's face was as dark as water, causing the entire Wang Fu's atmosphere to become gloomy. Everyone was careful with their words and actions, afraid of offending this king of hell. They were just like the previous servants who were chased out of the Wang Fu for gossiping. All the doctors in the capital had been invited, but no one had a solution. Now, the imperial doctors from the imperial hospital had also come, but they all kept their mouths shut and did not leak any information. The people in the Wang Fu were afraid that they would be implicated, but they were also curious. What kind of illness did the princess consort have that caused the entire yard to be sealed off? Only the two head maidservants, Xining and Jasper, were allowed in and out. No one else could even approach. The news of the princess consort did not have much time to live spread through the Wang Fu. Because of this matter, the Wang Fu was sealed off and no one could leave the Fu, so no one discovered it. This matter only caused waves in the Wang Fu, but there was no news outside. We need 2 new faces to play the role of the imperial doctors. Turin said to Huoling. Huoling scratched his head. I've already used up most of the people here. I'll pull out a few from your side. You'll all be in the dark anyway. No one will recognize you. Turin looked deeply at him. Huoling swallowed and complained. I knew you were petty. All right, I'll call them myself. After Huoling left, Turin vigilantly observed his surroundings. The young princess consort had told him to pay attention to any suspicious people lingering nearby. Compared to the panic outside, the room was filled with harmony and joy. Glutinous Rice Ball's body had mostly recovered and was currently circling around its mistress. It was full of vitality and did not look like it was on the verge of death 2 days ago. Is there any movement outside? Chu Qingyan asked Jasper, who was standing on the side. Jasper replied truthfully, when the news of you falling ill spread, it caused quite a stir outside. Everyone is guessing the cause of your illness. Recently, Huoling has begun to investigate suspicious people. Everyone in the Fu is in danger and has been more careful. Chu Qingyan nodded. All right, that's the effect I want. Because Xiao Su strongly requested that she handle this matter herself, Xiao Su promised not to interfere with her plan. However, his request was that she could not leave his sight before finding the person who poisoned her. At this moment, he was sitting behind a desk. Although he was holding a book in his hand, his eyes never left the person leaning against the window. Chu Qingyan also noticed that since she came back yesterday, Big Ice Cube had been following her closely, as if he was afraid that she would suddenly disappear. This made her feel both helpless and touched. At this moment, Glutinous Rice Ball left her side and squatted in front of him, tilting its head to look at him. Xiao Su glanced at it, put down the book, took the dried meat on the plate, and slowly tore it into strips to feed it. Chu Qingyan rested her chin on her hand. The scene of a big ice cube being fed to a glutinous rice ball was indescribably heart-wrenching. Big Ice Cube, I feel that you're especially homely like this. And a good homely man. Xiao Su glanced at her. I'm not usually homely. She shot herself in the foot. She hurriedly smiled fawningly. No. We're all homely, all homely. Glutinous Rice Ball chewed on the dried meat and tilted its head to look at its master. Its eyes were bright, as if saying, Master, how can you be so weak? You're the master of our Snow Wolf clan. Sensing Glutinous Rice Ball's disdainful gaze, Chu Qingyan was crying in her heart. She didn't want to either. Xiao Su retracted his gaze and calmly fed Glutinous Rice Ball another piece. He was in a good mood. At this moment, Jasper asked from the side, Master, it's already been a day. Are we still going to continue waiting? Chu Qingyan restrained her expression and nodded without hesitation. Continue waiting. The other party wants my life. If I'm not dead yet, she will definitely make a move. Xiao Su nodded when he heard that. There was a trace of coldness in his voice. As long as this person is still in the Fu, she will appear again. Chu Qingyan did not comment. She thought for a moment and turned to say to the big ice cube, Have Fire Spirit and Turin help me pass on a message. Xiao Su nodded with a frown. It was as the two of them had thought. He had been waiting in the room for the news of Chu Qingyan's death from poison. She had been excited at the beginning, but now she was anxious and impatient. She paced back and forth in the room, feeling uneasy. Could it be that there was a problem with the medicine? Logically speaking, even if she did not die immediately from the poison, she would not last for more than 2 hours. But looking at the situation now, it was already beyond her expectations. She had already sent out the letter, but there was still no news. Would the Empress be able to fulfill her promise? Her heart started to feel uneasy, and she hated Chu Qingyan even more. Why didn't she die yet? She really was tenacious. When a person reached a certain point, they would start to distort. He was like this at this moment. Suddenly, a dart flew in from outside the window. She quickly caught it, and then quickly walked to the window. There was no one outside, so she lowered her head and took down the paper on the dart to read. Master said, I want to see the person if she's alive, and the corpse if she's dead. There was a plum blossom mark on the bottom of the paper. This was the secret signal between her and the Empress. He clenched the paper in her hand and revealed a vicious expression. Have you heard? The imperial doctor from the palace is very skilled and said that he can save the princess consort's life. As long as the princess consort survives tonight, she will wake up. Yes, I also heard about it. You didn't see that the security in the courtyard is not so strict. That's because the Lord's mood has improved a lot. He ordered the guards to withdraw and rest. The princess consort's illness came so suddenly. Isn't my cousin helping Dr. Shun to get the medicine? Dr. Shun said that if it continues to drag on, he will have to prepare for the princess consort's funeral. After staying in the room for a while, He came out to inquire about the news. She didn't expect to hear about it so quickly. She looked at the maidservants gathered in the corridor, and her face became gloomy. Didn't that person tell her that there was no cure for this poison? How can it be someone who can detoxify it? Gritted her teeth and hated herself. She really can't do anything right. Chu Qingyan has already stepped into the palace of the King of Hell. She didn't expect that someone could pull her back. Bai Ji turned her head and looked at the closed door of the courtyard. Her heart was somewhat conflicted. Should she let her go or not? After a while, Bai Ji clenched her fists. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If she let her escape, it will be more difficult to kill her in the future. Bai Ji was not a reckless person, but in order to stay by the Lord's side and become his woman, even if there was a mountain of knives and a sea of fire in front of her, she will break through it. He turned around and walked away with firm steps. Chapter 1179. Nightfall. Outside, the third watch sounded and everything was quiet. A figure appeared on the roof like a ghost. The black figure crouched down and stared at Chu Qingyin's courtyard. In the courtyard, there were guards patrolling back and forth. But because they hadn't rested for 2 days, most of them looked tired and yawned from time to time. The black shadow seized the opportunity and flipped over the wall. Then, he jumped onto the tallest tree in the courtyard. Finally, he took advantage of the fact that the guards were listlessly taking turns to land on the ground. Then, he flashed under the window and gently pushed the window open. With a leap, he entered the room in a beautiful arc and closed the window. Everything happened so fast that no one could react in time. The black figure stood still in the room and scanned the surroundings. Other than the person on the bed, there were no other maids around. This was simply the heavens helping her. That's right, she was Hong Yi, the Hong Yi who hid her martial arts skills. At this moment, she was looking at the bed covered by the veil with a smug and hateful gaze. Tonight, success or failure depended on this one move. She couldn't be more familiar with this room, so in the darkness, she walked towards the bed. Because of the luminous pearl placed on the bedside, a faint glow spread in all directions, illuminating the beautiful face of the person on the bed. Hong Yi lifted the veil and saw the scene of this pearl beauty. Although she was poisoned and in a coma, her natural beauty couldn't be concealed. She couldn't help but feel a little jealous. So what if you're beautiful? Aren't you still lying on the bed and waiting to be slaughtered by me? Her tone was very harsh, like a poisonous snake spitting out its tongue, coldly and viciously glaring at its prey. She pulled out a dagger from her sleeve, and the light from the blade shone on her eyes. She curled her lips and slowly said, Chu Qinyin, you can't blame me. Who asked the Lord to like you? You're so lowly. What right do you have to make the Lord treat you differently? So if you have anything to say, go to hell and say it to the king of hell. Her gaze landed on Chu Qingyin's jade-like face, and she smiled viciously. Don't worry, I'll disfigure your face and leave your most unique side in Lord's memory. Hong Yi laughed in a low voice, which was indescribably eerie in the dark night. After enjoying the last moments of Chu Qingyin's life and satisfying her despicable heart, Hong Yi raised the dagger and ruthlessly stabbed it into Chu Qingyin's heart with resentment and pleasure. Go to hell. When the tip of the dagger was less than an inch away from Chu Qingyin's chest, her hand could no longer move. Hong Yi, who had been quietly closing her eyes, suddenly opened her eyes. Her eyes were clear, and there was no sign of drowsiness. Hong Yi was shocked. She had fallen into a trap. One sitting and one lying down, the two of them looked very harmonious, but when they looked at each other, a storm was brewing. Hong Yi, I didn't expect it to be you. Chu Qinyin was still digesting the words she had just muttered to herself, and her gaze was cold as she looked at her. Although she had been discovered, Hong Yi didn't panic at all. She smiled contemptuously. That's right, it's me. I'm here to take your life. After saying that, she used her other hand to attack Chu Qinyin. Chu Qinyin subconsciously raised her hand to block, and Hong Yi took this opportunity to shake off her grip and retreat a few steps. However, it was at this time that the sound of footsteps came from outside. Soon, the light of the lanterns shone in. Chu Qinyin lifted the blanket from the couch and stood up. Her gaze was as calm as water as she looked at her. Hong Yi, you've already been surrounded. Surrender yourself. Hong Yi looked around. Outside the window, at the entrance, there were many lit torches. A group of people had surrounded the entire courtyard, and the person in the lead was the person she had been thinking about for a long time. Surrender myself? Could it be that you're going to let me go? Chu Qinyin, I'm not a 3-year-old child. If I surrender, I won't be able to live. Hong Yi pointed her dagger at her and said with a fake smile, I heard that your martial arts were personally taught by Lord. Then let me see it today. Saying that, she made the first move and attacked Chu Qingyan. She actually took the opportunity to attack while they were talking. How despicable. Hualing, Jasper, and the others wanted to rush forward, but at this time, Xiao Su raised his hand to stop them. Let's watch first. Just now the little fellow had given him a signal. Since she wanted to personally take care of her, then he would keep his promise and let her make a move. So in the middle of everyone's encirclement, Hong Yi and Chu Qingyan began to fight. Hong Yi's attacks were very vicious. Her movements were fast and fierce, and her moves were very similar to those of an assassin. Lord seems to be very assured of you. Aren't you afraid that I'll hurt you? Hong Yi sneered as she made her moves. Chu Qingyan held onto her flexible sword and countered every move that came her way. When she heard Guriyun's words, she subconsciously looked at Guriyun and realized that when Guriyun was looking at the big ice cube, her eyes were filled with adoration, love, and bitterness. She calmly said, "You don't have the ability to hurt me. I'm asking you, who do you belong to? Do you think I'll tell you?" Hong Yi rolled her eyes as she asked back. Chu Qingyan ignored the sarcasm in her words and continued to deal with her. "Hong Yi, why do you have such a strong hatred towards me?" Perhaps the person behind her wanted to kill her, but she could not figure it out. Just how did she offend her? Was it because she was the big ice block's future princess? When she said this, the indifference on Hong Yi's face broke. Her eyes were scarlet red and filled with anger as she looked at the person in front of her who had shown a kind face from beginning to end. "Chu Qingyan, what qualifications do you have to stand by Lord's side? You don't have a rich and noble family. The Chu family is in dire straits. So how can you help Lord in the future? Moreover, your appearance has sapped His Highness's will, causing him to lose interest in the world. You will be a stumbling block for His Highness in the future. What right do you have to act as the mistress of the prince's mansion? Do you know how disgusting you are?" The Hong Yi in front of Chu Qingyan had a sinister look on her face. She no longer looked as gentle as she used to be. Instead, she looked like a poisonous beauty who was constantly spewing venom. Chu Qingyan's face darkened at her words. "So you think I don't have the qualifications to stand by His Highness' side, but you do?" Hong Yi gave a laugh. "I just want to stay by Lord's side and look up to him. So, I want to get rid of you and not let him be affected by you." Chu Qingyan's eyes instantly turned cold. "This is what you think is good for him. But you're all doing this for your own selfish reasons, forcing your own ideas onto others, saying it's good for him, but not asking him what he wants. You're all too selfish. I have nothing else to say to you." She wanted to get information from Hong Yi, but the more she heard, the more her heart turned cold. After Chu Qingyan received her blade, she used the force to flip in the air and then fiercely kicked out at her. Hong Yi raised her hand to block in a panic, but she was still kicked out of the window and fell out of the courtyard. Chapter 1180. After Hong Yi was thrown out, Chu Qingyan landed from the air and put away her sword. Her complexion was not good because what Hong Yi said just now had crossed her bottom line. Her bottom line was Big Ice Cube. In the past, Empress Liang had said that she was doing this for Big Ice Cube's good and would use her life to force him to help her achieve her goal. This was enough to make her heart turn cold, but because the other party was Big Ice Cube's birth mother and an elder, she could not do anything. But Hong Yi was different. She said that she was doing this for Big Ice Cube's good, but she was doing things that harmed others for her own benefit. She could not take this lying down. If everyone thought this way, then wouldn't they be able to use this excuse to help themselves hurt others and make others feel grateful? It was simply too disgusting. In the end, she was too selfish. When Chu Qingyan walked out of the room, her body was filled with killing intent. When Xining and Jasper came up to greet her, they could clearly feel her emotions. The two of them couldn't help looking at each other. What did this Hong Yi do to Master? How did Master change from a gentle little girl to a cold-faced witch in the blink of an eye? Seeing the little fellow walk in front of him, Xiao Su reached out to touch her forehead. "There's nothing to be angry about. It's fine as long as we caught the person. He did not know what the two of them had said when they were fighting, but he could see that the little fellow was very unhappy. If the little fellow was unhappy, he would also be unhappy. So Xiao Su turned around and said to Hualing, "Take her away. No matter what method you use, you have to pry open her mouth." So what if she was a woman? She dared to hurt his little fellow. Even if he had to bear the infamy of bullying women, he would not hesitate. "Lord, you can't treat this servant like this." He was already under control. She spat out a mouthful of blood, and her face was a bit pale. Hearing this, she recovered from her dizziness, and her voice was filled with pleading and attachment. This king cannot tolerate betrayal the most. No matter who is behind you, you are no longer someone from the King of England's palace. Xiao Su coldly said, not even willing to look at her. Hong Yi's eyes were red as she cried out, "Lord, Hong Yi has always been loyal to you." Xiao Su coldly looked at her. "Why brought you back from the famine? It was to give you a place to settle down. If you did your job properly, the king's palace would have taken care of you until you were old, but you hid your martial arts and had a vicious heart. You kept causing trouble for Ian. Do you think you are loyal to this king or the master behind you?" Hong Yi sat down on the ground. She had been in the king's palace for more than 10 years and knew him the best. At this time, he was frowning even when he looked at her, as if he was a fly. This made her heart feel like it was being torn apart. "Take her away." Xiao Su did not want to talk to her anymore and directly gave the order. At this time, Chu Qingyin, who had been coldly watching from the side, suddenly stood up. "Wait a minute, I have something to say to her." Xiao Su did not approve of her being alone with this kind of person, but seeing her determined expression, he waved his hand for them to leave. "I'll wait for you in the room." Chu Qingyin smiled at him and nodded. The big ice cube was always this understanding, knowing that she did not want anyone else to hear her words. Hong Yi, who was immersed in grief and despair, saw that when Chu Qingyin walked over, there was no one around. Her eyes were filled with fear. "What do you want to do? You know fear now, but don't you think it's too late?" Chu Qingyin stopped 3 steps away from her and looked at her with an indifferent gaze. You want to lynch me? Come, I'm not afraid of you." Hong Yi was like a hedgehog with spikes all over its body as she looked at her with hatred. "Lynch? I'm afraid your blood will stain my hands." Chu Qingyin shook her head with a smile. Hong Yi did not understand. "Then what do you want to do? Are you mocking me?" "Hong Yi, I'm staying because I have a few words to say to you. I'm afraid you won't be able to hear it in the future." Chu Qingyin said indifferently. "Is that so? I'm all ears," Hong Yi said with a cold smile. Chu Qingyin did not put her arrogance in her eyes as she slowly said, "Hong Yi, I think you've tarnished the word like. I feel that it's not worth it for His Highness to be liked by someone like you." "You?" Hong Yi's eyes turned red with anger. Chu Qingyin did not care at all. "I said you were too selfish before because you don't know how to like someone at all. You love yourself more than you love others, so you only think for yourself and never put yourself in other people's shoes." Hong Yi clenched her fists and snorted with a raised brow. "You say it like you know a lot." Chu Qingyin, don't be so self-righteous. Chu Qingyin smiled. "That day when His Highness was heavily drugged with aphrodisiac, it was your doing, right?" The questioning tone and affirmation made Hong Yi's heart clench. Her face darkened. "I don't know what you're talking about." Chu Qingyin continued to smile. "It's fine if you don't admit it, but I look down on this kind of woman. Giving herself away at all costs is actually a kind of burden for others. Also, not everyone is so greedy for beauty." Saying this, she paused and a trace of pity appeared in her eyes. "Hong Yi, your love is too selfish and too lowly. What right do you have to say that about me?" Hong Yi hated that her martial arts were not as good as the others. Otherwise, she would have killed the person in front of her at any moment. Seeing her fly into a rage, Chu Qingyin was as calm as before. "Do you really think the Empress will accept a woman like you and keep you by His Highness' side? Chu Qingyin, you think you're omnipotent and can obtain everyone's love? I'll tell you, the Empress has always seen you as a thorn in her side. She promised me, as long as I can." Saying this, her voice suddenly stopped. Hong He looked dazedly at Chu Qingyin in front of her, who was staring at her like a torch. She was shocked that she had let the cat out of the bag. It really is her. Chu Qingyin's voice turned cold. Hong Yi finally reacted. Were you trying to provoke me just now? To get information from me? Chu Qingyin looked at her without commenting. Do you know why I kept you when you made so many mistakes in the past? Was it to raise a tiger? No, I always felt that there was someone behind you. I didn't think that my intuition was right. Then how did you know it was the Empress? Hong Yi was shocked by her honesty. She suddenly felt that she had never seen through the person in front of her. In the past, she had been blinded by hatred and treated a fox as a little sheep. Or perhaps it was because she didn't want to admit her abilities and subconsciously thought that she wasn't worthy of her master. Actually, among all the women in the capital, she was the most outstanding. Hong Yi seriously looked at Chu Qingyin for the first time. That peerless face with those bright eyes and that red dress that fluttered in the night wind gave people a sacred feeling that couldn't be profaned. This kind of woman really made people jealous. Chapter 1181. You don't need to know. Chu Qingyin smiled faintly at her. There was no mockery or sympathy. It was as if she was just looking at an unimportant person. She made a hand gesture, and very quickly, someone came over and carried Hong Yi away. Hong Yi finally felt panic. She looked at Chu Qingyin under the tree, who was so sacred and unapproachable, and the jealousy in her heart surged up again. Chu Qingyin, don't be too proud. One day, there will be someone who will make you beg for death. Chu Qingyin retracted her foot and turned to look at her. Her gaze was as calm as water, but under the moonlight, her entire body was emitting a cold aura, and just a glance was enough to intimidate her. Hong Yi forgot to react in that moment, and Xiao Lai-Chi, who was at the side, immediately covered her mouth to prevent her from saying any more disgraceful words. Seeing Hong Yi's angry red eyes, unwilling to be taken away, Chu Qingyin pursed her lips and turned to walk into the room. Xining had already brought people to clean up the room, and when she walked in, everything was restored to its original state. You didn't make a move? A voice came from behind the curtain. She paused for a moment and could vaguely see a broad and tall figure behind the curtain. She thought for a while, then reached out to pull open the curtain and walked to the center of the room. The person who was standing with his back to her slowly turned around and looked at her with a calm expression. The lights outside shone brightly, making his appearance a little blurry, but that pair of black eyes was exceptionally bright. How did you know? She stood in front of him, her eyes filled with doubt. She had not shown any intention of wanting Hong Yi's life. So how did the big ice cubes see through it? Xiao Su lowered his head and looked into her eyes that were as pure as water. Suddenly, he raised his hand and placed it on top of her head. He sighed and said, You don't have to show any pity for someone like that. Also, you don't have to do it yourself. When he was talking to Hong Yi, the little fellow stood aside and did not make a sound. In fact, she was having a mental struggle. When she asked him to talk to Hong Yi alone, the emotion that flashed through her eyes was that she could not bear it. He knew her, so he knew what she was struggling with, but he did not say it out loud. No matter what the little fellow wanted to do, he would support her unconditionally. She was stunned. So that was how it was. Her eyes were filled with admiration. Big Ice Cube, you're too godly. If you were anywhere else, I would have thought that you studied psychology. Xiao Su shook his head and laughed at her exclamation. Then he asked the question in his heart, Then why don't you do it? Hearing that, Chu Qingyin was silent for a while before she replied bitterly, I can't do it. Especially when she mentioned you, the affection in her eyes made me think that she was a girl who was blinded by love and went astray. Xiao Su shook his head. You're still too soft-hearted. If you let some people go, they might not be grateful to you. They might even hate you even more. This is why people's hearts are hard to fathom. Chu Qingyin puffed up her cheeks and finally sighed. I admit that you're right. I'll work hard to correct myself in the future. No need. This is good. You can just be yourself. Xiao Su reached out and pinched her face, his voice filled with affection. Chu Qingyin blushed. I'm not a child. You don't have to coax me. I'm willing to coax my own wife. Seeing him say this without blushing or skipping a beat, Chu Qingyin felt that she should be shy for him, but she didn't dare to look at him. Woo-woo, her skin was too thin. It wasn't as thick as a big ice cube. Tell me, why did you suddenly want to take her life? This isn't like you, Xiao Su asked in a low voice. This was what he couldn't understand. The smile on her face froze. She thought that she had already gotten away with it. She didn't think that he would still ask. Her fingers kept twisting. She wasn't good at lying, especially to the big ice cube. She had always told him everything she knew. Now, she was a bit panicked. She couldn't tell the big ice cube that the person behind Hong Yi was the Empress, his mother. The reason why she wanted to get rid of Hong Yi was because she didn't want him to know that Hong Yi was a spy that his mother had placed by his side to monitor his every move. If the big ice cube knew that the aphrodisiac was his mother's idea, how would he feel? If he knew that the person who wanted to kill his future wife was his mother who had raised him, how disappointed would he be? Parents, other than their loved ones and children, were the people they loved the most. She knew that the big ice cube and Empress Liang didn't have a good relationship, but after all, they were related by blood. He had always been a filial son. No matter what the Sichuan emperor did to him, he never cared about it because he valued his family. If Hong Yi was alive, her mouth wouldn't be hard enough. Xiao Lai would pry out those secrets. Then, would the big ice cube experience the betrayal of his family again? She didn't dare to think about it anymore. If she knew earlier, she would have killed her with a sword to prevent future trouble. Just as her expression changed, Xiao Su suddenly said, "Forget it. You naturally have your reasons. I won't ask." The surprise came too suddenly. Chu Qingyin threw herself at him and hugged him. "Long live understanding." Xiao Su smiled and pulled her into his arms. He said in a low voice, "You mischievous spirit." She leaned in his arms and laughed mischievously. "Big ice cube, let's make a deal. How about you let me be in charge of interrogating Hong Yi?" She blinked and smiled mischievously. She deliberately pretended to make things difficult for Hong Yi. Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. "Why are you so enthusiastic? I also want to learn how to interrogate criminals. How about it? Do you agree?" She threw a coquettish glance at him. Then, she was disgusted by herself. Selling her body for this was simply too much. He could tell at a glance that she had other motives. She just didn't want to say it. Since that was the case, he wouldn't ask. However, what are you going to give me in exchange? It was clearly a serious question. Why did it sound like an indescribable feeling to the big ice cube when he said it? She swallowed her saliva. "What do you want?" "No, why was there a need to exchange?" Xiao Su chuckled. Then, he leaned close to her ear and said something. Instantly, those little white ears turned red. She pushed him lightly and said, "Don't be like this." Xiao Su smiled. He carried her up and placed her on the table. His eyes reflected the light that poured in from the window. It was so bright that no one dared to look at him directly. He murmured, then cupped her face and kissed her. "Close your eyes." On the window, two figures were getting closer and closer. At this moment, Hong Yi was locked up. She sat quietly in a corner, looking very pathetic. At this moment, the metal door suddenly opened and a person walked in. She slowly raised her head. When she saw the person standing in the dark, she stood up with a look of surprise. "You're here to save?" Before she could finish speaking, she looked down at the dagger in her chest and fell down in disbelief. Her ladyship said that only the dead will not reveal secrets. Hong Yi's eyes were wide open as tears flowed down her cheeks. Chapter 1182. When Chu Qingyin and Xiao Su received the news, Hong Yi was already dead. Seeing that Hong Yi was covered with a white cloth, Chu Qingyin closed her eyes and looked away. It was hard to imagine that a person who was still alive in front of her just a few hours ago was gone just like that. Even if she had committed the most heinous crimes and committed all kinds of evil deeds, she still died in such a way, which made people sigh. Xiao Su held her shoulder and said, "Let's go." She watched as Hong Yi's body was sent away, then nodded and followed him out. Big Ice Cube, bury her properly. After all, she stayed in the palace for more than 10 years and helped you maintain the peace in your backyard. Chu Qingyan asked. Xiao Su nodded. I'll do as you say. She sighed softly. In this world, other than life and death, there was nothing else important. Once you leave this world, then your love and hatred, your past, your everything will disappear with the passage of time. If you want people to remember you forever, then you have to live well. Because if you're no longer here, then you will never be able to find a trace. Even those memories will be mixed up with time and then become blurry until you can no longer remember them. After the sadness of spring and sorrow of autumn, Chu Qingyan suddenly became serious. Big Ice Cube, there is actually someone who can hide from the fierce cavalry and silently kill Hong Yi. We have to investigate this matter properly and find that person. After the little fellow finished speaking, Xiao Su said with a cold expression, I already know who it is. You know who is it? Chu Qingyan was surprised. I will handle this matter. You go back and rest. He did not tell her clearly, but only rubbed her head and said with a deep voice. Chu Qingyan was slightly stunned. Maybe she could not help, but the big ice cube did not want her to know. Since that was the case, she would not interfere and let him handle it. Although they found out Hong Yi and knew the person behind it, because of the other party's identity, they could not act rashly and could not easily condemn them. This matter could only be considered as coming to an end. These 2 days, she did not dare to relax. Hearing the big ice cube's words, she was also a bit tired, so she did not stay and turned to walk back to her own courtyard. After the little fellow left, the warmth on Xiao Su's face slowly dissipated with the rise of the sun, leaving behind a dark and cold expression. Where are Gu Rong and Gu Yi now? Xiao Su asked expressionlessly. Tu Ling, who was standing by the side, thought for a while before replying, because Master has not brought them with him these few years, this subordinate has assigned them to the secret guards in the manor. They are responsible for the protection of the manor. Speaking of this, Turin remembered that when Master was young, the Empress had placed them by his side as playmates. Later on, because of this relationship, Master often left them in the palace when he went out to travel and fight. The last time he brought them with him was 5 years ago when Master returned to the palace victoriously. When Master suddenly mentioned them, he couldn't help but think of Hong Yi's death. He thought about it and connected many things together. Suddenly, he had a bold guess. This guess made him tremble. Could it be, bring them here, Ben Wong wants to personally interrogate them? The Earth Spirit did not dare to delay and immediately ordered someone to summon the 2 of them. After giving his instructions, he turned around to look at the person standing under the tree. The person's black robe fluttered in the wind, but the tall and straight figure gave him an inexplicable feeling of loneliness. He quickly drove this thought out of his mind. How could Master have such an expression? He must be seeing things. When Chu Qingyan returned to her room, she coincidentally bumped into Hua Xiuli and Lin Fengyi, who were looking for her. She invited the 2 to sit at the stone table under the shade of the tree. How did the 2 of you have time to come over together? The 2 of them had previously stayed in the Wang Fu temporarily. Later on, for some reason, Lin Fengyi bought a courtyard outside, and the 2 of them moved out, living a cohabiting life where no one would disturb them. Because Hua Xiuli had always dressed as a man outside, it did not cause much of a stir. Hua Xiuli pointed at the person beside her. He heard that something happened to you, so he came to visit. At this time, Lin Fengyi nodded with a smile and said in sympathy, It's very fortunate that you managed to escape safely this time. He had nothing to do today, so he came to visit you. Actually, he heard that the one in your family had lost her composure because she was too anxious that day. He didn't see it with his own eyes, so he came to visit you today to ridicule the one in your family. Hua Xiuli did not have any awareness of betraying her own people and giggled as she revealed everything. At the side, Lin Fengyi held his forehead helplessly. How can there be such a daughter-in-law? It's really a family misfortune. Hua Xiuli's face reddened, and she stomped her feet. When did I become your daughter-in-law? Don't talk nonsense. You're ruining my reputation. Lin Fengyi ignored her daily stomping and turned to ask Chu Qingyan, Have you caught the person? She did not hide anything and directly told the 2 of them what happened last night. Wow, that was so exciting. If I had known, I would have stayed last night. That way, I would have been able to watch the good show of you fighting that evil woman. Hua Xiuli exclaimed at the side. At the side, Lin Fengyi frowned slightly. Then, what was the result of the interrogation? Chu Qingyan shook her head and sighed softly. This morning, Hong Yi was silenced. Hua Xiuli was stunned. This. After all, she was a commoner. Although she was usually a little crafty when doing business, she was still a first-class citizen. When she heard this, she was a little frightened. Lin Fengyi was silent for a moment before asking, "Then where is Xiao Su now?" After comforting her good friend, Chu Qingyan casually said, he said that he wanted to personally interrogate a few people. After saying that, she noticed that Lin Fengyi's expression was a little off. She could not help but ask seriously, "Is there a problem?" Lin Fengyi relaxed her brows and smiled faintly at her. "Nothing. I just feel that it's a little strange that he suddenly did this, since he hasn't personally interrogated people for a long time. However, he has nothing to do recently. Perhaps he's bored." Chu Qingyan nodded, but still took this matter to heart. After chatting for a while, Hua Xiuli urged Lin Fengyi to leave because she still had matters to attend to in the shop. Before leaving, Lin Fengyi hesitated for a moment, but still said to Chu Qingyan, "Pay more attention to him these days." After saying that, Lin Fengyi smiled and left with his noisy wife, while Chu Qingyan was still puzzled. After sending the two of them off, Chu Qingyan felt a little uneasy. She summoned Jasper and asked, "Where is His Highness now? I just heard from the servants that half an hour ago, after Lord left the interrogation room, he entered the palace." "Entered the palace? Did His Majesty summon him?" She continued to ask. "No one came from the palace today." Jasper shook her head. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips. The big ice cube went straight to the palace after the interrogation. Could it be that he found out that the instigator of the Hong Yi incident was the Empress, his imperial mother? Then after he found out the truth, how sorrowful and sad would he be? She suddenly regretted that she did not insist on accompanying him today. She looked at the clear sky outside, but her heart was shrouded in a haze. She felt a little breathless. Chapter 1183. Ever since she disobeyed Peng Huang and Xiao Ho's orders at the palace banquet, Pang Zhijing had been under house arrest and couldn't go anywhere. In the past 2 days at the courier station, she could often see the envoys going in and out through the window. She didn't know what they were plotting. Obviously, Peng Huang's side suffered serious losses because of her desperate move. She heard that Xiao Ho refused to negotiate with them because of this. Until this morning, when she saw the gloominess on their faces disappear, she was sure that Xiao Ho had stopped acting pretentious and officially cooperated with Peng Huang again. She was also relieved that she didn't have to endure these people's cold eyes anymore. Although the food wasn't harsh, if she always stayed here, she would be like a canary in a cage. What was the point of living then? Moreover, after not seeing Xiao Ho for a few days, she found that she missed him. Although she didn't want to admit it, she was really attracted to him. Sigh. This person looked like he was full of evil tricks. She should stop. Yes, she should get out of this situation as soon as possible before she was poisoned too deeply. As she thought about it, she suddenly realized that the guards guarding her were dismissed. She was delighted. Did this mean that the house arrest was lifted? Let's go to Prince Yi's mansion. Although she didn't want to see him anymore, but women always said one thing and meant another. Thinking of this, she let her people out without any pressure. While sitting in the carriage, she nervously thought about what excuse she should use to see him later. The weather has been good recently, so I came over to take a stroll. No, it's too fake. I haven't seen you for a few days, so I came over to see if you've lost weight or gained weight. Are you crazy? I just have nothing better to do. Do you have a problem with that? Huffed. She guessed that she would be thrown out of the mansion after saying that. Just as she was feeling vexed, the maid beside her said, "Princess, we've arrived at Prince Yi's mansion." So fast. Forget it. Just let it be. She got off the carriage dejectedly. As soon as they saw her carriage, the manservants at the gate eagerly helped to lead it. As soon as she walked in, the steward specially ran to greet her. The servants coming and going were also very perceptive and came over to salute her. Pang Zhijing was frightened by the warm and attentive atmosphere. She asked the maid, "What's wrong with them?" The maid said with a smile, "Because you'll be their mistress in a month. Of course, they have to be respectful. It's human nature." Hearing the 3 words mistress, S's heart was a little. Pang Zhijing thought that she had to establish a good image, so she immediately straightened her back and walked with the vigor of a tiger. Then, when she walked into Xiao Ho's courtyard, she found that he was not there. "Where's the prince?" she asked the housekeeper. The housekeeper looked at the empty courtyard and spoke with a sad tone. "Today is the anniversary of Empress Luofei's death. His Highness should have gone out. Her is as Luo as hers. Your Highness's birth mother passed away when your Highness was 6 years old." The housekeeper sighed. Pang Zhijing's breath caught. Losing his mother at the age of 6 in the cannibalistic palace. How sad was that? There was only one emperor, but there were 3,000 beauties in the harem. The weak were prey to the strong, not to mention he was a prince. It was a blessing to be alive. "Princess, are you okay?" The steward saw her expression was a little strange and hurriedly asked. Pang Zhijing pulled the corner of her mouth. "I'm fine. By the way, do you know where he is now? He should be outside the city. In the past, Lord always went there." After getting the location, Pang Zhijing didn't stay a moment longer. She hurriedly got on the carriage with the maid and rushed out of the city. The steward watched their carriage disappear into the street with a gratified smile on his face. "Miss, don't worry. The future princess consort is very cute. Maybe she can take away the hatred in Lord's heart." Chuyang Palace. Empress Liang was ordering people to help her try out the new products sent by Chu Qingyan. "Nyang Nyang, you don't say. When these things are applied on the face, it instantly brightens the complexion of the skin. Even the skin becomes much more delicate." Luo Yun stood to the side and watched the palace maid's actions as he sighed. Empress Liang reached out and saw that the back of her hand was much whiter and more tender than before. She couldn't help but curve her lips into a smile. "These things are truly miraculous. Even His Majesty praised me a few days ago for looking like I was 16 or 17 years old again." As expected, women still need to be maintained, no matter how old they are. Nyang Nyang is still young and is naturally beautiful. With these things, it's even more beautiful. Luo Yun flattered. Empress Liang glared at her. "After so many years, your mouth is still so sweet." "This servant is speaking the truth," replied Luo Yun with a smile. Empress Liang happily stroked her face in the mirror. The more she looked, the more satisfied she was. To be honest, this empress is quite reluctant to part with that girl, Chu Qingyan. It's a pity that she doesn't know how to appreciate favors. Luo Yun agreed. This can only be blamed on Miss Chu's family background. She can't help His Highness much. Nyang Nyang is also thinking for His Highness. 0-inch, but Su can understand this empress's good intentions. As Empress Liang spoke, she face-bombed and sighed. "Right? Is there any news from Hong Yi? I've already ordered people to take care of it, but they haven't reported back yet. It's probably because the security is too tight and it's hard to send a message," analyzed Luo Yun. Empress Liang nodded. "Have them do it cleanly. Don't let Su find any traces." "Yes." Luo Yun thought of something. "That's right, Nyang Nyang. This servant has already sent people to investigate the matter of the young miss from the Jing family falling into the water." "Tell me about it." According to the palace servants who were present, Miss Chu was supposed to be the one who fell into the water, but for some reason, it ended up being Miss Jing. Also, all the signs point to the fact that Miss Chu was the one who fell into the water. Luo Yun analyzed the situation based on the information she received. Her expression was a bit confused. This servant doesn't understand why consort you would do this. Empress Liang's expression became a bit unsightly. Based on her many years of experience in the inner palace, she immediately guessed the reason. Her tone was harsh as she said, "What else could it be? Xiao Ran has taken a liking to Chu Qingyan. So consort, you wants to use this unscrupulous method to make Su break off the engagement. She wants to slap this empress in the face and satisfy Xiao Rant's wish. Fourth Imperial Prince and Miss Chu? Luo Yun was stunned. Empress Liang sneered. Wasn't there a rumor about the two of them? It seems that it wasn't groundless speculation. Chu Qingyan still can't be tolerated. Then should this servant send people to take care of her? Suggested Luo Yun. Empress Liang waved her hand. Don't act rashly for now. Hong Yi's matter isn't over yet. Let's wait first. Right at that moment, a palace servant quickly walked in. Nyang Nyang, His Highness requests an audience. Empress Liang was delighted. Sua hadn't come to the palace to see her in a long time. Let him in. Chapter 1184. In contrast to Empress Liang's joy, Luo Yun was a bit worried. Your Highness, could something have happened for His Highness to come at this time? Empress Liang raised her brows. What could have happened? Luo Yun, you're overthinking things. Luo Yun bowed her head with a smile. This servant is overthinking things. His Highness came to visit you out of filial piety. This servant will order the servants to prepare fruits and snacks right now. Empress Liang waved her hand. You can withdraw. It was rare for Su'er to come today, so she had to tell him that there were some vacancies in the imperial court recently. She had him think of a way to recommend people from his uncle's side to His Majesty. Xiao Su entered the hall and immediately saw Imperial Mother sitting at the head of the table. He walked in front of her and bowed. I greets Imperial Mother. Su'er, you haven't come to visit this consort since the palace banquet. The older you grow, the more distant you become from Imperial Mother. Empress Liang was a bit angry when she saw his cold appearance. Xiao Su replied indifferently, I've been busy with court matters recently, so I rarely come to accompany Imperial Mother. Imperial Mother, please forgive me. How could Empress Liang not hear the perfunctory tone in his words? She chuckled. This consort thinks that you're enjoying yourself so much that you've forgotten about home and Imperial Mother to the back of your mind. Xiao Su looked at her coldly. Imperial Mother, please be careful with your words. Empress Liang was furious when she heard this. Renner, don't think that Imperial Mother is far away and doesn't know. That lowly wench Chu Qingyan is about to make you cuckold. Could it be that you're going to swallow this humiliation? That slut Fuyu you also gave birth to a son like that. If the upper beam isn't straight, the lower beam will be crooked. He always wants to steal other people's things. Imperial Mother already told you to stay away from Xiao Ran, but you wouldn't listen. Look, he schemed against you during the palace banquet. If it wasn't for someone accidentally replacing her, our Liang family's reputation would have been ruined by Chu Qingyan, and we would have become the laughingstock of the capital. Empress Liang kept calling her a bitch. Xiao Su was annoyed by the Liang family's reputation. He said coldly, so this is the reason why you want Ian's life. What? Empress Liang did not react. Hong Yi is one of your people, right? Xiao Su said with certainty. Empress Liang was a little flustered. However, she couldn't reveal any flaws. If she was caught by him, their relationship would deteriorate further. Therefore, she pretended to be calm and said, What are you talking about? Why couldn't Imperial Mother understand? Isn't Hong Yi the head maidservant of your inner court? Hong Yi was secretly groomed to be an assassin by the Liang residents from the moment she was born. When she was 6 years old, she was arranged to join the famine crowd. In the end, she was taken into the prince's residence by Ai. I didn't say anything wrong, right? Empress Liang was stunned. She didn't think that he would be able to investigate something that happened so long ago. The Liang residents had indeed secretly groomed a large group of assassins. Back then, she had wanted to place a spy by his side to report on his every move, so she had asked her father for one. However, she couldn't admit it at this moment. Once she nodded, then everything she had done before would be exposed. This son of hers could do anything, but he could not tolerate betrayal. Therefore, she refused to admit it and said, Imperial Mother doesn't know anything about what you're saying. If you want to condemn someone, you can easily find a pretext. Su'er, If you really hate Imperial Mother, why do you have to find these reasons? Just say it directly. Imperial Mother can take it. Xiao Su looked deeply at her. The exquisite makeup, the flawless expression, and the weeping accusation were all very well acted. If the person sitting in front of him wasn't his Imperial Mother, he probably wouldn't have given her a chance to quibble. Imperial Mother, I will give you one more chance. Were you the one who ordered people to poison Ian? Empress Liang saw that Su Yi kept insisting on Chu Qingyin and was even questioning her for someone who was not related to him by blood. She was so angry that she laughed. Su, are you crazy? Crazy? The corner of Xiao Su's mouth twitched. I think that the person who's crazy is Imperial Mother. Empress Liang slapped the table heavily. She furrowed her brows and said angrily, Xiao Su, watch your attitude. It seems that Imperial Mother intends to deny it to the end. No matter, I brought a witness into the palace. If you have nothing else to do, you can meet him. Xiao Su smiled coldly, then clapped his hands. Soon, the sound of footsteps approached from afar. Empress Liang was shocked. What the hell was he doing? Soon, the person was brought in. It was a young man covered in blood. Although his face was swollen, it didn't affect his identity. After Empress Liang saw him clearly, she froze in place. It was Gu Yi, the other spy she had placed at Xiao Su's side. You had Hong Yi murder Ian. After the plan was exposed, you ordered Gu Yi to silence her. So from the beginning, Gu Yi was the middleman you used to contact Hong Yi. Do you still want I to continue speaking for you, Imperial Mother? Xiao Su expressionlessly looked at his mother, whose face had turned pale. An unknown emotion flashed through his eyes, and his entire person became even colder. Everything had already been exposed. Empress Liang wasn't the kind of person to pester endlessly, so she wasn't that panicked anymore. She might as well smash the broken jar. That's right. This consort placed Hong Yi at your side because this consort wanted to understand your daily life through her. This consort wanted to know what you were doing. Killing Chu Qingyin was this consort's idea. So do you want to take revenge for her? What is Chu Qingyin worth? Is she worth you disobeying your own Imperial Mother for her? Was this gloomy and cold woman really his Imperial Mother? I want to take revenge on you because Ian wouldn't allow I to do so. Otherwise, she wouldn't have wanted to personally silence Hong Yi and hide your identity as the mastermind. It's a pity that you exposed yourself. She's a kind and good girl. It's a pity that you never understood her good side. If you have the time, it would be better to strengthen your position in Imperial Father's heart. This would be more convenient than having I profit for your Liang family. After Xiao Su finished speaking, he ignored her anger and continued. I came to the palace today to tell you something. In a month, the two countries will be married. I will hand over the Tri-Army Command Medallion and leave the capital with my people to return my fief. If there's nothing important, I will never return to the capital. What? Empress Liang was shocked. You don't need to threaten me with death. Everyone has their own fate. I won't listen to you anymore. Also, before I leave the capital, I won't come to Chuyang Palace again. I hope you take care. Xiao Su bowed slightly to her. You unfilial son. How can you say such a thing? Empress Liang stared with wide eyes at the cold child in front of her. She couldn't believe that he would one day say such words that cut off all ties with her. He was like a bird that had been tied to a silk thread and was struggling to fly away. At this time, Luo Yun entered the hall with a palace maid. She immediately felt the chill in the air. This scene had to happen every time. She warmly greeted, Your Highness, this is the latest fruit that was offered as tribute. You. Xiao Su coolly looked at his Imperial Mother, who was on the verge of exploding. He calmly said, If there's nothing else, I will take my leave. You. Xiao Su didn't look at her again. He turned and strode out of the palace. Hearing the porcelain behind him fall to the ground and all kinds of sounds, Xiao Su raised his head to look at the dark sky. He suddenly felt a bit sad. Ian, from now on, I only have you left. The rain fell drop by drop, slowly soaking the world. Chapter 1185. The drizzle kept falling, drifting into the carriage and falling on Pang Zhijing's body. Her cheeks were cold. She was refreshed and turned to look out of the window. She was a little surprised. When she went out, the sky was clear and boundless. How could it be so cloudy? Your Highness, the weather is not good. Shall we go back home? The maid inquired. Pang Zhijing waved her hand. We are already out. Look, the city gate is right in front of us. How can we go back? But we only know that Prince E is outside the city. We don't know where he is exactly. The maid tried to persuade her. Didn't the steward say it? After passing through the woods outside the city, we will see a small hill. Just go over it. The maid thought that the princess was so eager to see Prince E that she ignored everything in the rain. As a servant, she could only follow her orders. Pang Zhijing was a little anxious. There was a certain distance between the inside and outside the city. She didn't know if Xiao had left when she arrived. The carriage sped into the woods and stopped at the bottom of the hill. Pang Zhijing jumped out of the carriage and said to the people in the carriage, "Wait for me here. I will go by myself. I will be back later." "Your Highness, you can't." Before the maid finished speaking, she had already jumped out of the carriage and ran up the hill. The rain was not heavy, just drizzling. Pang Zhijing stepped on the soft ground and felt that the air was very fresh. So she climbed up the hill and admired the surrounding environment. The place was overgrown with weeds, desolate and remote. It didn't look like a place where people often came. Why did he come here to pay homage to Luo Fei? Thinking of this, she had already climbed to the top of the hill, intending to look down and see where he was. However, when the scenery below fell into her eyes, she was shocked on the spot. Endless tombstones were erected in a disorderly manner among the weeds. Most of them were damaged beyond repair. Some were broken, and some had fallen to the ground. They were scattered all over the place in a disorderly manner, giving off a desolate and gloomy feeling. The drizzle fell on her face. It was cold. The chill from the soles of her feet made her stiff in an instant. Is this the legendary mass grave? A gust of cold wind blew, and the grass that was taller than the tombstones danced in the wind. The white dandelions danced in the wind, and the distant horizon darkened. Everything seemed so strange. Although she lived in a scientific world, she had been afraid of ghosts since she was young. The scene in front of her made her heart turn cold. Should I go back? But Xiao was here. She couldn't leave. On such a special day, she wanted to accompany him, but perhaps he didn't care at all. Before his mind could make a decision, his body had already walked toward the bottom of the slope. She pushed aside the grass that was taller than a person and slowly searched for it. She muttered in her heart. This place was so big, so where was Luo Fei's tombstone? Also, why would an imperial concubine be buried in a mass grave? The people buried in the mass grave should be those nameless people who couldn't find their families. What was going on? Originally, Xiao was like a mystery to her, but now she couldn't understand him at all. After walking for more than an hour, she still couldn't find him. She didn't dare to shout for fear of encountering a bad person. She could only find a place to rest. She leaned against a crooked tree and wiped the sweat from her face. Using her sleeves as a fan, she looked around. At this time, she saw a white shadow fluttering in the wind behind a large tombstone. She subconsciously swallowed a mouthful of saliva. How could she be so unlucky? Did she see a ghost in broad daylight? She subconsciously wanted to run away, but another gust of wind swept over, blowing away the mist in the air. The outline of the white shadow gradually became visible. Xiao. She stared in surprise. It was really a case of wearing out iron shoes in a fruitless search, only to find him without any effort. She didn't dare to stay any longer. Otherwise, she would be scared to death by some crows that ran out. So she quickly ran towards him. Unfortunately, there were too many vines on the ground. Although the distance wasn't far, she spent a lot of time. When she was 10 steps away from Xiao, she couldn't walk anymore. Her hands were on her knees as she bent over and gasped for breath. After resting for a while, she raised her head and prepared to call out to him. But when she saw the scene in front of her, she subconsciously closed her mouth. White clothes fluttering, a young master like Jade, a picturesque face. Anywhere else, it would be pleasing to the eye, but dilapidated fences and dilapidated walls. Cattail grass fluttered in the wind. The grass was like a cushion, the pine was like a cover, the wind was like a garment, and the water was like a pendant. Looking into the distance, dark clouds covered the world. The world was dark, the cold wind blew, and the drizzle was like a thin mist. Between heaven and earth, his white clothes became the only color in this black area. Only, the loneliness and desolation of his body was like thick ink dripping onto rice paper. It slowly spread in all directions, corroding the wind bit by bit, soaking in the rain, spreading endlessly. She thought that the wind that blew towards her was filled with bitterness. She had never seen such a dejected side of him. It was as if everything in the world no longer existed, and he was the only one left walking in the world. There was no joy, no happiness, no hope. His entire body was surrounded by loneliness as he walked tirelessly. She would rather see him with a gentle exterior, but a cunning and scheming heart. She didn't want to see him sad, as if he was the only one left in the world. But at this moment, she didn't know what to do. He stood there. Although he was so close, it was as if they were separated by a world. She didn't dare to disturb him. But this side of him made her feel an inexplicable heartache. Her gaze turned to the tombstone. On the mottled stone slab, there were only 4 simple words, Tomb of the Luo family. The words looked a little immature, as if they were written by a child. But she faintly felt that they were familiar, as if she had seen this handwriting somewhere before. In front of the tombstone, there was a bouquet of jasmine flowers. There was still dew on them. The small white flowers were blooming brightly. It was obvious that they had only bloomed today. In the air, there seemed to be a faint fragrance that seeped into one's nose. A burst of cold wind blew over, causing the corners of his clothes to flutter. It was as if he would be blown away by the wind if he wasn't careful. It was like he was immersed in his own world, alone and lonely, revealing his true self. There was no disguise, no mask, no insincerity, no smile that didn't reach his eyes. Taking off his warm outer clothes, he seemed like a traveler with shackles on his back, so heavy. She thought that his feelings for Luo Fei must be very deep, so even after so many years, his mourning was still so sad. How long do you plan on looking there? As she was lost in her thoughts, a cold voice pierced through the rain and reached her ears. She subconsciously raised her head to look at him, but what she saw was a pair of indifferent eyes. In that moment, it was as if her heart had been hit by something. It was as if her eyes suddenly lit up. Those eyes that weren't covered by a false smile were so beautiful that one couldn't help but want to reach out and touch them. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.